What is the nastiest thing you've done to a customer's order at a restaurant? I worked at a popular fast food chain in my younger years. It was my first time with closing shift and we were all doing our part to clean and prep the store. I see this lady with a mop and bucket come out of the back, slop it on the griddle and start just mopping it. I was appalled. I went back and told the manager and she tells me, well, that's the quickest way to clean it, and then scolded me for worrying about things that didn't concern me. I quit that job the next day and called the district office and told them what had happened. That location closed down not long after. But the franchise still exists. I mean, there's such a thing as a grill mop, but it's absolutely distinct from a floor mop. You don't confuse the two. I knew a guy that peed in a bucket of pickles. He would never have been caught if he didn't talk about it. There were other things going on at that McDonald's that helped ruin the reputation. It was also competing with another well-managed restaurant in a town that never really had room for both of them. The guy I'm talking about was just one of the most immature teens I've ever known. The funny thing is that he's married to my sister now and has a much better job than me. He slowly transformed into a responsible adult after having a child. The worst thing I did was to this one guy that I already didn't like, and he was being kind of a butthole, so I overcooked his eggs. Poured a whole tray of drinks over a guest. Twice. International trade fair with students as waiters. First time was an accident. Second time, she was so nervous she was practically shaking and spilled the drinks again on the very same guy. I saw a waiter pour an orange juice, take a big swig with his lips on the rim, top it up and then take it to the table. In college, I worked for a well-known pizza place. One of our waitstaff came to collect a pepperoni pizza and nabbed a piece of the pepperoni off the top before taking it out. He gets to the table and everyone is staring at him in stunned silence. There's a very fine string of cheese going from the pizza to his mouth. I had a buddy at McDonald's, a real chaotic type, who every once in a while would say, "Oh hey, guess what time it is? It's pickle surprise," and put a whole handful of pickles on a random cheeseburger. I mean, personally, I think your definition of nasty is off, as I'd probably be fine with that. I'd probably only have to pick a few out, to be honest. Love me a lot of pickles. Also, I would not be surprised if we were about to get many, many more stories from the Golden Arches. Case in point. I worked at McDonald's in high school, and I had a buddy who was basically like the pickle guy. The best one I remember was a girl we knew who ordered a burger with no onions. He took her burger patty, carefully carved it out so it became a burger ring, put that on the bun, and filled the entire center with onions. It was maybe 10% burger, 90% onion, but it looked totally normal from the outside. He never would have done it to a stranger, but friends were fair game. I also went through and ordered a burger one time, and he handed me the bag with what I thought was an evil grin. Turns out he'd put 9 patties on it. My other buddy who ordered 2 burgers got one with 4 patties and one with 5. Nastiest thing I've ever done? Well, I gave them what they ordered. We were a pizza/Italian/bar restaurant. Our menu was ludicrously large, and essentially anything that was on the menu that could go on a pizza was listed as a topping. Probably 40 to 50 topping choices. I'd get asked pretty often for a pizza with everything on it. I had a usual joke or two to find out what they really wanted. Typically a deluxe, but then they'd want no black olives or whatever. No big deal. Until the butthole came in that ordered, quote, everything, and then proceeded to ask if I was retarded when I questioned him. See, my sister is disabled, so I didn't appreciate his tact. I told my boss about it, and he smiled and said, "Get him a pizza with everything then." Bought it out and gave it to him. He flipped out and demanded the manager, of course. My manager had my back and gave the guy his bill, which at $2 a topping was well over a $100 pizza. The guy refused to pay. Cops got called, yada yada yada. I hope he enjoyed his pizza with clams, pineapple, buffalo chicken, broccoli, anchovies, green olives, cream cheese, cauliflower, jalapenos, and shrimp. Worked at a 50s-style diner. I was prepping the chicken breasts for our burgers and dropped a tray of 50 and they slid right under the grill. Easily the dirtiest place in the whole restaurant. My boss saw and had me pick them all up, rinse them with water, re-season them, and stick them back in the fridge. Yeah, I stopped eating there when I wasn't working after that day. At my last restaurant, my co-worker would make very ugly sundaes for customers who were rude. For particularly nice customers, she'd painstakingly recreate the sundaes in the menu pictures, and give them extra cream and sprinkles. "Yeah, pretty much this. I'll make what you order, but I won't put any love into it. If you're a decent human, I'll try to make you the best version of what you order." I should say that tampering with food is not very common. I've been in the business a long time and I've only worked with one girl who spat in someone's food. Another server saw her and she got reported and fired immediately. The only other thing that sometimes happens is when people get cocky and ask for extremely spicy food. The kitchen staff turn into evil geniuses then. A guy once asked me for wings so spicy that they'd give a woman a miscarriage. I relayed those lovely instructions to the kitchen, and I don't know what they did, but the sauce was burning my nose and making my eyes water just for carrying it out. He was not able to finish his wings. My dad started going to his neighborhood pub frequently for wing nights, and he'd ask for wings as hot as you can make them. Went on for quite a while, with them just dousing them with as much Frank Reds as you could possibly fit on them, because that's all they had for hot wings. Well, I guess eventually the cook got sick of being asked for as hot as you can make them, and acquired some special ingredients. Next time my dad asked for as hot as you can make them, he got a dozen wings spicy enough to strip paint off the space shuttle. My dad went back to just asking for plain hot wings or extra hot from then on. One time we had a woman call back because her rotisserie chicken was, quote, burnt. I explained it's just charred because of the way it's cooked. She wasn't having that, so we agreed to get her a new one. 10 minutes after her husband left, she called back even more angry, saying this one was worse. We told her to send her husband back again for a new one. The manager and I went back with gloves on and scraped off all the burnt parts. And I crap you not, 10 minutes after he leaves, she calls again, but this time her rice didn't have any craisins on it. So once again, I told her to send him back. I dumped so many frickin' craisins on that rice, I think she got the point, and we never heard from or saw them again. I know it's not super gross, but it's pretty rare to see someone maliciously F with someone's food. I've seen cooks use the 5-second rule when dropping food or not washing hands, but that's about it in my 7 years in the industry. Some Indian guys came in one time and asked for us to make their food as spicy as possible. I told them that's going to be extremely spicy and wanted to make sure they knew what they were asking for. They went on a long rant about how Indian restaurants are the only places that actually know what spicy is, and anything we bring out isn't going to be close to how spicy they like their food. So I had the owner come over to tell them that we'll try our best, but there won't be any refund on this food if it's too spicy. So we made them chicken fried rice with Trinidad scorpion peppers. After 2 bites and about 10 glasses of soy milk later, they ordered something else. I worked in a very well-known fast food chain for a while. My favorite example of this actually involved nothing. The person who bought the food had been rude to staff on multiple occasions. The person serving went to get their food, popped around the corner in a noticeable way, then returned, having done nothing. He gave the food to him with a huge grin on his face and said, "Enjoy." He then watched the person throw it in the bin when he went outside. I worked for Applebee's for 7 years, and not until my last year did I witness this act. One of the cooks would drop down to 1 pair of tongs for the grill station for closing. He used the same tongs for raw chicken, beef, seafood, and cooked food. He would swish the tongs in his sanitizing solution that looked like soup since he never changed it, and claimed that it was good after that. I called him out on that, and he told me that he never told me how to cook, so I should just let him be. I told management too, and it was swept under the rug like everything else. I quit shortly after, but that was the only time I witnessed something frickin' disgusting like that. That sounds like a gnarly brine, alright. There are 2 sorts of people in these chain restaurants, those who care way too much about rules and those who do literally just enough to not get fired. And it sounds like the second guy had worked out exactly where that line was with his lazy managers. My stepmom was super rude to a server, kept sending her chicken wings back and complaining. The last time the wings came out, the whole kitchen staff seemed to pile out and look at her. She refused to eat the wings and yelled at the server some more. It was so embarrassing. I would have left. I once had a customer have a complete temper tantrum, and her boyfriend, I assume, just got up and left her there. Interestingly enough, if we're going to dinner with her, my husband or I will bring cash so that we can do just that. I felt so badly for the server and the kitchen staff. Now, I carry enough money to be able to drop it on the table to pay for our meal and tip the server and apologize on the way out. My tolerance for people being rude or mean to others has gotten quite low. Worked in a fast food pizza joint. Nothing without consent of the customer happened, but customers did ask for some weird, nasty stuff. One time, a customer asked for extra chili and emphasized a lot. So of course, we put like a lot on it. Another person wanted chicken legs and wanted them extra crisp. He kept sending them back until it was pretty much burnt, which is when he found it perfect. The worst one, though, was a woman asking to put her pasta in a blender because she had just gotten prosthetics and couldn't properly eat. It looked disgusting. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below, and if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. This isn't really bad, but a lot of the times when people send their food back and there's just clearly nothing wrong with it, and the chefs will just rearrange the food on the plate, wait a minute or two, and then send it out to the table. The funniest part is when the customer then says it's better. I had a crap manager tell me I had to mop the floor again after I'd just done it perfectly. So I just waited 10 minutes and told him I'd done it. He comes out and says, "See, that wasn't so hard, was it?" It really wasn't, since I did jack all. I have not worked in a restaurant in over 15 years. I never messed with anyone's food because that is assault. What I used to do to snotty Karen types is give them a senior discount and announce to the table when I dropped the check that I remembered to add said discount. I mean, that's funny, because if they complain, that's going to cost them money. They wanted extra mayo, so I maliciously complied by drenching it. The lady thought I'd forget her fake $10 prayer tip the last time she was here. I worked at McDonald's in high school and college, and this kind of malicious compliance was the worst we ever did. Our worst was a guy who wanted extra pickles on his quarter pounder. We covered that thing. He comes back and says, "That's not extra." Okay, so he slapped a big frickin' handful of pickles on the new one, like almost couldn't wrap the thing. It was 80% pickles. He started to get huffy, but the manager goes, "Well, we didn't want to shortchange you this time and figured it was better to give you too many, and you could pick them off than too few." And then he stormed out. Not a restaurant, but the prepared food section of a highly regarded grocery store. Someone forgot to toss the old potato salad that was on its 4th day. That stuff needs to be thrown out at the end of the 3rd day. We were supposed to keep track of this stuff religiously. The manager told my coworker to just mix it in with the brand new stuff, so people were eventually being given 6-day-old potato salad. I guess worse things could have happened, but I'm squeamish about food, so it really bothered me. The most memorable one was once when a customer made a waitress cry complaining about their food and sent it back. The chef farted on the remake, and it got a lot of laughs. More common is if a customer is a butthole, when they order dessert, you find the smallest slice of cheesecake you can. Worked in a deli for a few years. I never tampered with anyone's food, but if you were a jerk, I guaranteed your bread was over-toasted, the lettuce on your sandwich was wilted, the tomato was the butt end with the hole from us removing the core, your onions were little pieces, the meat was the smallest of the portions, and so on and so forth. I wouldn't tamper with someone's food, but I damn well wasn't making them a good sandwich. And all of that goes the exact opposite way with the customers I liked. Always gave them the best product, to the point that they'd wait for me to help them. I used to work at a local pizza restaurant in a town known for its pizza. The cook always carried around a dirty, stained brown rag he'd used to wipe his hands and sweat off his face and blow his nose into. On multiple occasions, I've seen him let the rag touch the pizza while he was preparing it. When I was a pizza delivery driver, when habitual non-tippers ordered, I wouldn't cut their pizza all the way through. I worked in a movie theater. We got people who complained all about how the concession lines were so long, their movie's about to start, blah blah blah, all before they even placed their order. So now everyone else has to wait longer. You can bet I didn't butter the middle of their popcorn, just the top. And I filled their soda cup all the way up with ice before putting the soda in. Just keeping it speedy. I worked at a pizzeria joint in high school. The owners of the pizza place also had a woodworking business on the side, and they always gave this one butthole, nasty prick worker from that business 75% off any time he came into the pizza store. That's fine, no problem. However, he'd always come in at like 9:55 p.m. when we closed at 10, without fail right when we got done cleaning everything. This would happen 2 to 3 times during the week. He knew exactly what he was doing because he was always a massive prick just like that. And it was always a massive order, maybe a burger, some broasted chicken, and a pizza, so everything got dirty. To top it off, he'd sit there and eat the burger and some chicken and take the pizza home. That means we had to wait for him to get done and wait on him as we had a strict nobody closes alone policy. So 2 of the 3 would be stuck there. And we couldn't close early or lock the doors because he saw the owners every day from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the woodworking business and he'd 100% rat us out. After a couple of months of this, the store manager finally got sick of it, took the buns, put them down his crotch and let them sit there for a few minutes until his burger was done. I worked in restaurants for 10 plus years and never saw anybody intentionally messing with a customer's food. Honestly, it's just not that common in my experience. Same. Been in the business my whole life. Saw something deliberate only one time? There are plenty of sanitary issues in almost every restaurant, don't get me wrong. Some worse than others. But it's very rare for someone to deliberately mess with your food. Cross and physical contamination and temperature issues are a much bigger issue. Yeah, the issue that most people just aren't that awful to their customers, no matter how awful their customers are to them, has been a real problem writing this video. Turns out that most people in hospo are too decent or need the jobs too much to actually go out of their way to do something really entertaining. I'll try and find a few more of the golden ones before we finish up here. Worked at a movie theater for a while. Our pizzas came frozen in a large bag of many pizzas, so the contents sometimes got shifted around during shipping. One guy was acting like it was the end of the world because he got there late, hungry, and had to wait in line. He ordered a pepperoni pizza, so my coworker went to the freezer, pulled out a pizza with one slice of pepperoni on it, and tossed that sucker into the oven. The guy eventually got a refund, but that must have felt good just to see the reaction from him. When I bartended, the worst thing I ever did to an order was to pour a legal pour instead of being generous. The worst way I treated a customer was that once I refused to pick up the 2 dimes and a nickel he tried to tip me for his $14 drink, and when he said, "Hey, my man, this is for you," I replied with the terse, "Keep it, you clearly need that money more than I do. People don't mess with your food or drink, because that's our job, we take pride in it, but if you tee us off, we'll just refuse to serve you." There were only 3 things I'd ever do as a waitress: stingy ice cream if your kids were brats, bigger serve if they were well behaved. One table were extremely racist to my colleague, so I was given their table and they were so nice to me. So then I overcooked their free brownie so it was burnt in some spots, and put too much chocolate topping on their brownie so it was sickly sweet and very hard to eat. If they'd complained, I wouldn't have pled ignorant about burning it, and I would have said I was being nice with the extra topping. There's this lady and her daughter that come into my restaurant. Every time I've served them, they make you run. "We need more ranch. I want another margarita, extra ketchup," etc., etc. My favorite was the time when I asked if they wanted ranch with their wings. "Nope." And then literally as soon as I brought out the wings, "Oh, and we need ranch." And they never tip. Or if they do, it's insultingly low. Like once the tab was $48.50 and they gave me $50, and I brought the change back and the daughter, who's in her mid-20s, smirks and says, "Oh no, that's for you, sweetie." I left it there and walked away without a word. Now, whenever they come in, they just take forever to get served. And their margaritas that they drink like water, mostly because they may as well be, they're probably about half strength compared to what everyone else that doesn't act like jerks towards the staff gets. Their food sits under the heat lamps getting stale for a while. The kitchen is aware of this and the reason for it, and they're on board since these witches send their food back all the time claiming it's wrong even though it was made exactly to order, and of course they always waited until it was more than half eaten to complain. I genuinely cannot stand them. The younger one always just smirks when she orders things like she thinks you're such a pleb for being a server. Back in college, I worked in a fast food kitchen. We would make crappy or rude customers' orders with hate instead of indifference. As we always said, the food shouldn't suffer because the person who ordered it was a C-word. One time I ordered a liter of cola and the kid working the register secretly poked a hole in the cup. If you behave like a butthole to baristas at Starbucks, you'll get decaf espresso shots in your latte or cappuccino or frappe or whatever. If you ordered tea, they will not shake it. This is the way. This isn't really that bad, but lots of restaurants are guilty of it. The little date or day or timestamps on stickers and wrappers and salads, look closely next time. If there's one stuck on top of the other, or if there's more than one mark on the wrapper, your food has probably expired. Sometimes this is done because the food actually is still good and it's a shame to waste it, but other times it's a lazy worker who doesn't want to make more food, or a greedy owner who doesn't want to lose 3 cents. The type of stickers and labels varies by restaurant. Some timestamps look like clocks, and some are a line of numbers 1 through 12, with a mark through the one where the item expires. For example, if your sandwich has a mark through the 11 and it's now 3, your sandwich expired 5 minutes ago, but honestly it's probably still good. I work at Sonic. A lady complained, and there was a wire bread tie in her burger. That still bugs me. It was over 10 years ago. I worked at a golf course restaurant. One of my female coworkers had some crude crap said to her by one of the old golfers. Something along the lines of, "With a butt like that, you shouldn't be in the kitchen. You should be on the course serving us beers." Then he ordered a ham sandwich on the turn to the back nine. She licked the F out of that ham before putting it on the sandwich, then wrapped it in saran wrap, punched it, went out and handed it to him herself. I worked at a Taco Bell that used to be a combo Taco Bell and Pizza Hut, so it had this hood for the oven that was no longer there. One really tall guy used to rest his gloved hands up there between orders and then make food. Once, to prove a point, I wiped it down to show him how dirty it was. He said, "Great, now it's clean." Also, night shift would put dirty cardboard boxes on the fryer area to put the fried food to cool, so they could wash the tray. There was once a footprint on the box. I have more stories. Don't eat fast food at night. What's the most disastrous email fail that occurred in your workplace? Had a management peer send out a long screed about the state of the men's crapper on our floor. Very descriptive. Went out to all the men on the floor and a whole bunch of customers. HR sent out a terrible email about restroom cleanliness to my entire office. They sent an email complaining about crap stains on a toilet seat and a used tampon that was placed on the trash receptacle instead of inside of it. They even decided to attach pictures of both problems along with the email. I'm not sure of any repercussions of this email, but there were a lot of unhappy people in our office after opening the attached images. A design artist at a print shop I worked at 10 years ago, I'll call her Zed, had always been one of those flaky but only just good enough to keep types. She'd create files that looked fine to customers and on screen, but required craploads of pre-press defrickery to make printable. Zero real technical skill when it should have been half her job. One day, a little after lunch, a company-wide email from Zed to her husband came through where she described waiting with glee for the opportunity to purposely frick up a big repeat yearly job right before she planned to quit 8 months later. A lot of print jobs are on a yearly cycle with local businesses. This happened in February and referred to a 40k job that came around every October. As IT relief, I got called in to check what happened, and sure enough, Zed's other emails, sent on her workstation's email address to her husband, described other stupid things she was planning, and referred to one of her husband's friends who worked for a rival print shop, so it was clear it was a bit of sabotage and probably upcoming poaching. Zed was fired less than an hour after the email was sent. I didn't mention to my bosses that the email to all the staff was sent when I knew Zed was out of the office and had originally been sent before she went to lunch, and originally only to her husband. Our other designer, a quiet mousy type who could actually do the work, had seen the earlier set of emails at other times she needed to use Zed's workstation and had copied and pasted this completely revealing email into a new email to the whole company from Zed's workstation. I just told her later in passing that I got her email about Zed and gave her a thumbs up. I'm sure the schadenfreude was enough for them, but quiet mouse designer deserves more than a thumbs up. Oh, she got a new co-worker not long after who was also a good worker, no more constant picking up after Zed. Two of the partners at my old firm were having a not very discreet affair. Both were married to other people. Partner A was in charge of the summer associate program and sent an email around the firm with information on the summers, names, schools, etc., who would be mentors for who, dates of events, etc. Partner B replied, all, to a 500-plus person law firm, attorneys, paralegals, secretaries, everybody, I'm going to pork you so hard later. It was hilarious for several reasons, including his ultra-seductive use of the word pork. I hope someone replied, sounds delicious, count me in. From coworker 1 to everyone. Subject, porking. Everybody get in here. The original story was good, but these replies are Reddit gold. Fantastic work, everybody. Also, note to self, do not have email affairs in the office. A coworker of mine was trying to motivate their sales office and was saying to get your hands dirty, and if we had any difficulties closing a sale, the girls should shake their little butts and close the sale. Reached our CEO. She wasn't there long. I was a temp in a very large law firm for a bit. One day, a new lawyer was hired, and HR sent out the standard email to everyone introducing the new guy and congratulating him on his new position. New guy then replies to all and asks the HR person if his benefits package pays for a hair transplant procedure. I used to work at a law firm, and one day an email went out to everyone, about 40 people, that was about a specific case and had very little relevance to my job position, so I ignored it. A few minutes later, I got another email from a different attorney with a snarky response. Well, an argument started between these two attorneys, still replying all to the office, and after about 6 or so emails, a third attorney wrote, "Yeah, well, my dad can beat up your dad. By the way, you've been sending this to the whole office." At my firm, about 50 employees, there's a partner that used to reply all to conflict checks and other emails that are sent to all employees with, "X City says hello." Right up until the day when another partner replied with, "No one gives a frick about where you are today, Bob. Stop being an attention whore." Kind of the same thing but different. I used to work for a company that was a vendor for Abercrombie & Fitch. I would send emails to different people that work at Abercrombie every day. One day, I sent a request to someone at the company and got an out-of-office reply that basically said, "I am no longer with A&F. F this crap. F this place. Everyone here sucks." I laughed my butt off for a few minutes, then called a buddy that works there. Pretty soon the whole company was sending emails to this account just to read the reply. It took about an hour for their IT department to get wind and take it offline. One dude mailed one of those Great American Gas Out things to all 6,000 plus employees. The CEO did a reply all saying something like, "Exxon is one of our biggest clients, and using company resources for your own political agenda is against company policy. Reply all to a big group is one thing, but I don't understand how companies of more than 50 people still allow anyone to use the all employees group address. There are 50K employees in my company. There are several email distro addresses that include them all. It is heck when someone mucks up that one." People would type their password into group chats thinking they were logging into a particular system. I heard about someone where I worked that meant to send out an email to the whole department, a couple of dozen people, to let them know that for their birthday they brought in donuts for everyone. People do this all the time. This guy, however, selected the email list for the whole company instead of the department. They were getting replies from employees in other countries saying things like, "Well, I don't know you and I can't travel there just for donuts, but happy birthday." About 10 years ago, I worked in a small office and a co-worker was telling a boring story to the whole office. My boss went to email me to complain. I was his sounding board, but accidentally replied all to another company-wide email. His message sent to the entire company, "I wish Donna would have emailed me this story so I could delete it." She saw the email a few minutes later, threw keyboard up in the air, grabbed her purse and ran out of the office. My boss had to profusely apologize the next day. "Out of all the stories I've read so far, this one makes me laugh out loud. I can relate. A senior manager has done this with me when we're on conference calls, but he sends texts." I was chatting with a guy who told me about the time he had to conference call with the US while he was traveling to Singapore, and the call was taking place at about 4 a.m. his time. He got up, joined the call, muted himself, and then went about showering, shaving, etc., getting his crap ready for the day. Then when he came back, he listened for about 30 seconds, then unmuted himself to ask a question, so it seemed like he was engaged. His colleague, who was traveling with him, staying 2 rooms down, texted him to ask, "Are you seriously paying attention to this crap?" We use instant messaging, and there have been a few times where someone messages the entire chat group complaining about someone else's work or just them being generally bad at their job. Usually that's quickly followed by, "Oops," as if that's going to make it better. You have to own that crap. If someone calls you on it, just answer back with, "Yeah, I think Becky in accounting is crappy at her job. So what?" Or message just one person, but that one person happens to be screen sharing with the entire group. I worked in a very large government complex and someone once replied all to an email that was sent to the 500 plus employees with the caption, "This guy looks like Reggie, lol." The picture was of a large hairy man in a Speedo. I have no idea who Reggie is, but if the caption was accurate, then he should consider buying some hair trimmers. Oh, poor Reggie. That story is very mean if it's about a male coworker, and it's downright awful if it's one of the women with the same name that I know exist. But also kind of an impressive level of cruelty if that is the case. I was working in an office during the Iraq War and get an email from some random private, "Y'all motherfrickers need to shut the heck up." Puzzled by such a blatant attack, I checked who this guy was and who he sent it to. I want to say that he sent it to everyone in command in Iraq, Afghanistan, and a few other places. Some say that private is still doing push-ups to this day. That private is the sole reason we began pulling out of Afghanistan. We had this guy from the main office, Pete, who comes up from time to time. He's an arrogant butthole. I'd decided that I couldn't stand that smug prick within literally 30 seconds of meeting him. Anyway, we had quite a bit of turnover in our department since Pete's last visit, so our boss wanted to schedule a lunch so he could meet everyone. So, his admin sent out a mass email to see who might be interested in lunch on Thursday. I replied back that I wouldn't be coming in because I had a conflict, and then I added, "Plus, Pete's kind of a frickwad." I hadn't realized that I'd hit reply all until I heard the scattered laughter from all over our floor. Our boss came over, invited me into the conference room and said, "I'd appreciate it if in the future you'd let everyone decide on their own terms whether or not Pete is a frickwad." Thankfully, Pete wasn't on the email. Working in the claims department for a huge insurance company, one time a claim handler sent out very personal customer information to the entire company. Every single employee, including the CEO, security staff, building staff, even cleaning staff. So that's bad enough. But then we have this other guy decide to reply all to that email, asking the other guy why he sent him this message, blissfully unaware that the first guy sent it to everyone in the company. So now the first guy responds, still unaware of what happened, telling the second guy he has no idea how that email went to him. So this email thread goes back and forth, reply all, these two geniuses investigating what the frick happened for like 10 replies. They finally decided it was a computer glitch. I don't know how they still have jobs. I'd have fired them for just not knowing how reply all worked. As someone that works in a place that complies to IDOWorkHereLady standards, holy crap, I'm surprised no one in management didn't freak the frick out. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. A guy from my training class got fired for poor performance. He knew for months it was coming. On his last day before the obligatory "this isn't working out" meeting, he sent an email to every single person who reports to our work site. I work for a very large company, so hundreds of people estimating conservatively, that said nothing more than, "Remember, no one ever expects the Spanish Inquisition." I guess everyone thought it was prudent to hit reply all to send back their confused responses. For hours. My poor inbox was getting flooded by their stupid replies. That dude knew exactly what he was doing. Random user accidentally sends an email to an entire division of a large government agency saying she'll be late. Cue an hour of people reply alling, "remove me from this list," and then another hour of reply alling, "don't reply all." The "don't reply all" loop is hilarious. I've witnessed it several times. I'll never understand the stupidity of several different people saying "stop replying to all" in a reply all email over and over again. Someone got a hold of the addresses that emailed the whole of our university, woke up to 30,000 emails, half of them saying "please remove me from this list" and "guys, they can't remove you, stop replying" and "for frick's sake, you're making it worse." We also got subscribed to a ton of alternative special interest websites, had an Apple account made, which still occasionally makes transactions in Russia. It crashed my phone, the emails were so constant. Okay, this one is technically not reply all, but close enough. The Dutch Railway has a timetable app with push notifications, if your train is delayed or something. One morning last year, basically all people in the Netherlands with this app, that's millions, receive a push message. This is a test message. Dear colleagues, I checked with software and all messages have been sent and received. Followed by, just so Hio believes it too. Hio is a man's name. This one dude accidentally sent millions of people a message just to prove his colleague wrong. The GM of my office was having issues with the sales team. He's been known to go overboard. This time he hit a reply all and called one of the sales guys a dirty fricking N-word. Needless to say, once HR got hold of the email, his 27-year career was over. This is off topic, but your reply reminded me of it. When I was working in insurance, we had a new trainee at our office in the claims department who had his first claim and was putting the info into the claims software. Part of this process included typing a condensed version of your conversation with the customer. This particular customer requested that he wanted to pay out of pocket for a bigger rental vehicle, and the new employee typed into the system, "Customer says rental vehicle size on policy is too small and instead wants an N-word car." Obviously, he meant to type "bigger car." Best part about it was the system would not allow edits of the file after 24 hours. He caught his mistake the next day, literally 30 minutes past the edit cutoff time. Co-worker's baby sadly did not make it to childbirth. They announced the funeral. Guy in sales replies all with his "congratulations to the deserving couple." Holy frick, that's the most cringeworthy thing in this entire group. When I was in college, I worked at the local ISP. One day out of the blue, the lead system admin calls me. Hey, do you know how to break into Cobalt RAQ? I need you to delete an email. Small hosting server. I could probably figure something out. Worst case, I can reboot it and reset the password. Ah, crap. Frick. Never mind, that'll take too long. Click. A bit confused, I just shrugged and went on with my day. Later, I found out the reason for the strange phone call. The customer had been emailing back and forth with the sysadmin and the company owner regarding some technical issue that led to a billing dispute. The sysadmin, having a very short temper, hit reply all without thinking and wrote something along the lines of, "Just because that customer likes to take it up the butt doesn't mean we need to bend over and let him do whatever he wants." He called me to break into the server so he could delete the email before the customer had a chance to read it. Unfortunately, the customer got the email immediately and received a lot of free hosting services. This makes me realize that if a place I get a service from ever slanders me, I could reap the benefit. Time to start being a crappy customer. Actually, no, I don't have the spine to do that. I used to work for one of the largest newspapers in the world. One day, an email came through that was literally sent to the entire company worldwide. It was the contract a new hire who was a significant person at a rival paper was about to sign with a salary that was astronomical. The body text essentially said, "Give him whatever he wants." The woman who accidentally sent the email was kicked out of the building that day. When I read stories like this, I have to wonder, was it an accident or someone so teed off at the deal that they just said, "Screw it"? Guy just sent a, "Hey, listen babe, I just need to finish one last report and then I'll pick you up and frick your brain out in the car, okay? Sounds awesome, right? Yeah, until we noticed the address he meant to send it to was a subscription service for fake relationships and dirty talk. He was sending a message to a service he pays. He was role-playing. That's more sad than embarrassing. Put every name in the BCC if you're sending an email to a huge group so no one can hit reply all on accident. If they do, since they can't see the names in the BCC, the reply won't go to anyone but the original sender. Not a reply all, but my friend was using our inter-office instant messenger, meant to send the following message to me. Well, if she stopped trying to frick all of her clients, maybe she'd hit her sales target for once. Yeah, he sent it to her instead. He got fired. Someone at work sent an email asking for donations to his church. He sent it to over 2,000 employees. Then the chaos started. At first, I could see my inbox rise in numbers 5, 10, 25, etc. Suddenly, hundreds of emails poured in with some messages saying, "I don't want to donate and you should not send this email to everyone." No crap. I couldn't decide who was the biggest idiot. The guy who sent the email or the buttholes who replied all. The best email was from the IT director telling us not to reply all because the server was going to crash. And then it crashed. I heard that the guy got fired for soliciting donations, not emailing everyone, and IT got a slap on the hand for allowing everyone to have the access to the all-employees email group. Not my office division, but our oil field construction division sends in bids to secure future jobs. Lowest bidder wins. Winning a bid is sometimes scary because you wonder if you left out any estimation tables. Anyway, our estimator sends in the bid to the proper email, which goes to a secretary. Other competitors use the same email address to send in their bids as well. Imagine our horror when the secretary sends a reply all with a "Thank you for submitting your bid for Project X," and all the other bids are attached to this email. So every competitor sees where each other are increasing estimations and decreasing their costs. It's really both a "today I fricked up" moment and a cringe post. I work at a public institution. We send out our term schedules to departments so chairs, deans, and administrative assistants can review and make necessary changes. We had a chair reply back once the following: "I've made some changes to the schedule. Can you rerun the report and send it to me for my moron of a former secretary?" This is with the dean, chairs of the other departments in that academic college, and administrative assistants of that academic college all copied in, including the word moron. Apparently, she was on her way to being terminated for some reason. She was gone pretty soon afterwards. We never heard back from anybody else in that department either, so I'm not sure what happened. The chair that sent the email remained at the university until he ended up dying from something unexpectedly a few years ago. The head manager of my research and development lab got a spam email about a Windows virus involving a legit Java exe file that had a teddy bear icon, He looks on his computer and lo and behold, it's on his machine. He proceeds to lose his crap and forwarded it to everyone in the company, telling them to delete the file. He did not run this by IT first. IT was not amused. A sign showing a teddy bear with a dagger through its head labeled "The Teddy Bear Slayer" was found on his office door the next morning. Our company uses an IM service that's divided into rooms for each department as well as individual chats. We had a temp one year who flew through her work but did it poorly. She completed something like 24 tasks when the average temp did 5 or 6, but I'd have to stay late or waste my time fixing them. It was too far into our busy season to do anything else. So one night I messaged my coworker, "Ugh, she did like 25 things again. Now I've got to fix them." And she goes, "Ugh, frick." And then a third person goes, "That sucks." And I realized I'd sent the message to our entire department, including the aforementioned temp. First time I ever made a coworker cry. It was so bad. I made up some excuse that we both knew was bullcrap, and I still cringe thinking about it. True story. Worked at Maxis, division of EA, in the late 90s. We had a few temporary employee game testers, including this one girl, around 20 or so. I guess some friend of hers emailed her at work, one of those stupid teenage spams that went something like, "Forward this email to 5 friends and your crush will ask you out. Forward it to 10 friends and your crush will kiss you." So somehow she forwarded it to EA, as in everyone. Every employee at EA, maybe 2,500 people at the time, I suppose. I think our email system allowed a recall function to pull it out of the inboxes of anybody who hadn't read it yet, and I think she tried that, but it was too late. It outraged enough people around the company, including Redwood City HQ, Canada, Florida, and Texas, that I saw her in her boss's office within the hour in tears. We never saw her again. Just last week, an email was mistakenly sent to over 100,000 people in at least a dozen different countries. After about 45 minutes, there were a couple of reply all responses. A decent amount of people replied all saying not to reply all, but didn't realize that the email server was backed up trying to send a few million emails. Some emails took over 10 hours from the time sent for me to receive them. This caused more people to say not to reply all as they hadn't seen anyone else's response saying so yet. Over the next 12 hours, I and every one of the 100,000 people received over 180 emails, all having to do with wondering what the original email was or telling us not to reply all. Over 18 million emails in total. A back-of-the-napkin estimation said it cost the company tens of thousands of dollars. For those asking for the calculation, if all 100,000 people lost 5 minutes of working time to this mess, that is 500,000 minutes, which is 8,333.3 repeating man-hours. I'll assume an average payment of $20 per hour per employee, which is a very low estimate. That's over $166,000 lost. Keep in mind that while not everyone spent 5 minutes reading through and deleting the emails, there were also people like me who lost upwards of 5 to 6 hours due to waiting on emails to get me started on a new set of work. The large consulting firm I worked at was rolling out new laptops company-wide and sent out a mass email outlining the 2 laptops that employees could choose from once they received their notification that it was time to choose. Essentially a standard laptop or a smaller laptop that could be converted into a tablet, a Lenovo Yoga. Several people replied all, but my absolute favorite reply was simply, "I want the one that can be like iPad." All lowercase, 0 punctuation. Top-notch professionalism. An employee emailed if anyone could take his 2 to 10 shift, but he forgot the F in shift, so someone replies to everyone, including our managers and GM, "Wow, that's a long shit." You get the idea. What has made you bail out of sleeping with someone? Went for a Facebook booty call a while back. Her 7 and 9-year-old daughters kept walking in and she told me to just ignore them. She also insisted on blaring George Strait while we went at it. Between her kids walking in and "all my exes live in Texas" blaring from her speakers, I just couldn't do it. I noped the frick out. Her come-on line was, "I know a guy who'll give us all the crystal we can smoke if we frick right in front of him." In high school, freshman year, I dated this girl for about a month. When we did the deed for the first time, she rips off the rubber, says she wants me to drop my seed inside her because she wants to start a family, pulled my pants up and left immediately. Years later, she has a kid with her new boyfriend. Train successfully dodged. A guy used the line, "I want to fill you with my seed" in a pub once, did not let go of my friend for hours. Asked her if she was clean and she said, "Yeah, it's a long story, but a lot of stuff happened, and it turns out now I can't get transmissibles." I thought to myself, you know what, I don't want to do the deed that bad, and I left. This reminds me of a prior roommate who said she doesn't use rubbers because she can't get pregnant and doesn't sleep with people who have transmissible diseases down there, but she wasn't getting tested or having people get tested. She never went into any detail on why or how she knew she couldn't get pregnant, just because of some stuff that had happened, hence you reminding me of her. A couple of months after I moved out, I found out she's pregnant. Yeah, so that plan worked out all kinds of well, huh? Glad I got out of there before a kid was around. Dealing with her was a headache enough, not because of her personal crap or not using rubbers, she was just crazy. Guy I worked with walked around telling everyone that he F's his girlfriend without a rubber because guys can't get warts down there. I told him that not only has he basically told everyone that his girlfriend has warts down there, but he probably has them now too because men can indeed get them. It's just not as likely to turn into cancer for them, and now he'll have to use a rubber with everyone for the rest of his life or risk infecting them with something that could give them cancer. Of course, I'm the bad guy for telling him that. We were in his car fooling around after leaving the bar together. I asked why we couldn't go back to his house. He said his wife was home. Nope. He didn't want to wake her up. How considerate of him. Well, we don't know if they had an open relationship, but I'd say the odds aren't good from what we've heard. Better luck at the next bar. This is my favorite story to tell. I'm a type 1 diabetic and my nickname where I'm from is diabetes, so everyone knows I have it even though some people would still be like, "Oh, you're actually a diabetic?" Anyways, I met this girl at a house party one of my friends was throwing. This was back in 2010, 2011. As the night goes on and drinks get consumed, we get all love drunk and go to bang it out. About halfway through our session, she randomly kicks me off and pushes me away. Stop, I can't do this. I freak out, thinking that I've done something horribly wrong. What's going on? What happened? She looks straight at me and I crap you not, she says to me, I can't catch diabetes. All I could think to say was, "You've got to be fricking kidding me." Her incredible response, and again, I swear on my inability to produce insulin, I'm not making any of this up, this is word for word burned into my memory, I can't get diabetes. It's like cancer, I just can't catch it. By the time she said cancer, I had my pants back on and was running down the stairs. I get back to the party and all of my friends are like, "Whoa, look who it is, how was it?" You will never believe what the frick just happened to me. In conclusion, my type 1 diabetes not only blocked me, but apparently is a transmissible disease similar to cancer? She also wasn't lying when she said it's like cancer. Neither of them are communicable. In fact, maybe those were all separate statements. I can't do this. I can't catch diabetes. It's like cancer. I used to have hepatitis, but I swear I'm clean now. A lot of people have remarked to me that Hep C is treatable now. Let me tell you, when you've both just got back from a raging party in college, everyone's drunk and in the buff, and you're collectively about to get your Discovery Channel on, this is high on the list of things you don't want to hear. Are you sure? I'm positive. I fricking knew it. First time at this girl's apartment, we were hanging out for a while and she tells me she's always had this fantasy about being with a black guy. I figure that being one was to my advantage this situation, so cool, definitely going to get some kind of action. We're making out for like 20 minutes and she gets undressed and I get undressed and we start getting really close to each other and she goes, "Wait, stop." So I back off and she goes, No, keep going." So I position myself back over her and she goes, "Please don't." So I get up, done with it at this point, and she gets mad. "You're ruining it. You're supposed to force me to." It's been like 8 years and still nothing as crazy as being an unwitting participant in someone else's, forced fantasy. She clearly had a very specific fantasy in mind, but she's at fault for not bringing it up beforehand. Finding out she's pregnant and still with the guy. Well, at least you knew you weren't going to get her pregnant. At the bar one night and it was pretty packed. I finally made it to the bar and this definite cougar comes over and starts hitting on me hard. I talk her up a bit but play it cool. She's not bad looking, but I'm not sure if I'm down just yet. I finally ask her what she'll have to drink. I wanted to just go ahead and buy her the drink, so maybe she'd back off a bit since I knew that's what she wanted. Got her some sugary mixed shot and she threw it back, leaned in lightning fast and laid her lips on me. I pulled back after a second as this hot younger chick ran up and screamed, "Mom, get out of here, you're ruining my night." Instantly turned around and got away from that fricked up family reunion. We had a party at my house with roommates. I passed out sitting on the couch. I woke up with a raging hard-on and my roommate's wife, in only her pink bathrobe, was rubbing my wang through my pants while her husband was lustfully watching. I jumped up, spilled my beer all over myself and went to bed.
Did you move out? 'Cause I'd imagine it would be pretty frickin' awkward around there after that.
I moved out a few months later, we never spoke of it. I found they replaced me with a cam girl they met online, which means my old room must be her new studio. Prior to divorce, wife wanted to have unprotected fun out of nowhere, after literally 6 months of refusing to put out. And I suspected she was trying to get pregnant to prevent the impending separation. Nope.
Or she'd barebacked someone else and wanted you to foot the bill.
I felt something rubbing against me while I was inside, and after feeling around in there, I removed a very grey, very soggy, old tampon. That was the end of the night for me.
I mean, you probably saved her a trip to the ER.
I was the noped-on person, and I don't blame the dude. Short version, I started crying about my ex and threw up. I literally never throw up from drinking, so that was a weird one for me. At least we were in my place, and I made it to the bathroom. Yeah, he noped, and I cried and begged him not to leave. After that, I decided drinking with a broken heart is a bad idea. Well, at least you have the hindsight to learn from the experience. Hope things are going better for you now. A girl I used to date and I were doing the deed in the dark. Unbeknownst to me, my nose started bleeding. I went to grab her chest, and they were wet as frick. It took me a while to realize what was going on, but once I did, I immediately stopped. It was pretty embarrassing as she was covered in blood. It was a really hot summer with no AC, so apparently she just thought I was sweating intensely. Asking me to just take her when she wasn't expecting it. To be clear, she had a fantasy of being taken against her will, whereas it was my very first time to be getting it in, so to speak. I was not okay with it. Finding out the guy, who at the moment had me in a very uncompromising position, got off on the idea of forcefully infecting others with a transmissible disease. I didn't stick around long enough to see if he was actually serious. I stopped hooking up for a good long while after that one. Got to his place, walked into a room and saw that it was completely bare except for a couple of lights and a tarp spread across the floor. Immediately turned around and walked out the door, got in my car and left. Don't know what the tarp was for. He was either going to murder me or wanted me to pee on him. Either way, nope.
Do you like Huey Lewis in the news?
Is that a raincoat?
The dog jumped on the bed and started to lick the girl down there, and she didn't push the dog away.
She took off her shoes and the smell could have killed a horse. It nearly killed me. Smelled like a hobo in a recycling room. The mood was killed, I was nearly killed. I left both disgusted and concerned. Pretty girl though. Almost lost my virginity, but I didn't because of Pokemon. I was a teenage virgin in a long-distance relationship. Boyfriend calls, says his parents will be out of town and I should come over. I scramble, trying to figure out what people wear to do this, and we didn't even have Walmart in my town to buy lingerie, let alone somewhere classy. I make the 2-hour drive, we started making out in his bed, get a little hot and heavy, and I undress down to my hottest undies. He gets up and goes to his desk, and I assume he's getting a rubber, which got him a huge bonus point from me, because it was my first time and I didn't really know how to ask about stuff like that. Instead, he pulls out a sketchbook, beams at me, opens to a page, and goes, "See this drawing of Charmander I made?" I say, "Yes," and then he comes back to bed and starts flipping through his sketchbook, showing me his Pokemon drawings while I sit there in my undies, stunned by the turn of events. We do this for a good 15 minutes, then later he tries to get us started again, but I was just not having it. We fall asleep, still virgins, and woke up to watch Power Rangers because why the frick not at that point, right? When this girl I was hooking up with kept talking about how babies brighten her day, then she insisted we didn't use protection. Wise move, my friend. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Had a great first date with this one, a blast. Went back to her place, started to hit it doggy. She reaches over to her nightstand and pulls out a rolled-up pouch, unrolls it and pulls out a syringe. Asks me if I've ever tried smack. Instant limp eggplant. I broke the frick out so quick I don't even remember getting dressed.
This thread is pretty much a PSA to keep your private parts clean. So many filthy eggplants and manky tacos. Do people not wash?
I have a few instances I can think of. Number 1, while in the middle of losing my virginity after sneaking a boy into my room, in the wee hours of the morning he suddenly jumped up and started pacing the floor. He really needed to crap, so I said the bathroom was immediately outside my door to the right. He opens the door and then slams it shut. My dad was in the kitchen, which was in clear view of my bedroom door. He ended up just standing there and crapping himself. I'll never forget that smell. And I didn't have air freshener, so I sprayed some flying insect spray that had a sweet smell to it. Anyway, when the coast was clear, I escorted him to the bathroom where he gets in the shower. I had to make it look like it was me showering, therefore, I had to sit in the bathroom while his crappy boxers stunk up the place. He gets out, puts his boxers in a few plastic bags, and changes into fresh clothes. Then he tries to continue doing the deed. I was like,
You can go out the window?
We still keep in touch on Facebook, and he uses that as a funny story to tell our mutual friends. Number 2, I picked up a dude at a bar who was hands down the funniest person I'd ever met, and that was severely attractive to me. It also helped that he was just generally attractive. While going down, he asked me if I could take some pictures of him with his phone. I grab it, and as I'm taking the picture, his girlfriend sends him a goodnight text. I just hand him the phone, and he lets out an exhausted sigh. She won't stop telling me she loves me, and I don't want to lead her on. Okay, kind of uncomfortable, but we keep doing the deed. He starts to get very rough with me, biting everywhere, making my lips bleed, calling me a whore, basically using me as a doll. Which would have been fine if discussed beforehand. I don't like to be ambushed. Then he grabs me by the throat and demanded I told him I loved him. Freaked me the frick out because of his crazy eyes. I had this intense sense of dread that's hard to describe, but it felt like in that moment I was in danger, so I just pushed him off me, grabbed my clothes, completely wordless, and literally walked into the apartment complex hallway in the buff where I got dressed in the stairs. Number 3, and last but not least, the guy who, while I was lying undressed on his bed waiting for him, proceeds to casually pull out a syringe from his nightstand and shoots up right in front of me. He slid onto the floor giggling, and I just got dressed and left without him even noticing. Very blatant, very obvious warts down there. He said they were skin tags. Dude, I know warts when I see them, and I don't need that stuff in my butt. Did the deed on the 3rd date. Things were going well, and then as we're lying there, she says, "Now that we're in a relationship, I need to be the one in charge. That means no adult magazines, and I need to access your Facebook account and email so that I know you aren't cheating on me." I noped out of that one.
An honest question. Did she think you couldn't get like a million new Gmail addresses for any hush-hush stuff even if you gave her your main address? Oh, and zero trust is a wonderful thing to build a relationship on.
I was going down on a lady on her couch when she stopped me. She rolled onto the floor and reverse army crawled into her dog's bed and told me to take her there. Her 2 cocker spaniels were now awake, standing at attention on the side of their bed. I noped the frick out of that scene. Look, folks, if you're doing the deed and are both into this, then as far as I'm concerned, you can do whatever you want in your own home. But it is a bold move to try to move into this without discussing it with your partner first. Met a girl at a club and went back to her house. Everything is going fine, nothing out of the ordinary, until her housemate comes home. I was like, maybe we should stop, or at least close the door? She replies with,
"Oh no, it's okay. He likes to listen and sometimes he watches from the hallway."
She wasn't joking either. I put my clothes back on and walk out, and there he was, just giving himself a good time in the frickin' hallway. I was on vacation in the Dominican shortly after graduating high school with 5 of my friends. Met this cute Bolivian girl in our resort, and we hit it off. A few hours later, I'm in her room. We're going at it. She repositions onto her hands and knees and tells me to put it in her butt. I ask for lube and she hands me a bottle. I was giddy with excitement because I'd always wanted to do this. I lather up both of us and slowly slide it in, but she had clearly done this a few times before now. Now I'm pumping her hard and have thrown caution to the wind. We hear a keycard go into her door and the handle turn. She frantically whispers, "Novio," boyfriend, and I realize that I have 3 seconds before I get my butt beat. I pull out at lightning speed and she yelps, liquid crap sprays all over my stomach and wang, and I grab my shorts off the floor and run out of the balcony and hop the ledge. Thank God that room was on the 1st floor. I don't think the guy chased me, but I sprinted away. Still very much in the buff and definitely covered in crap. I cleaned myself in the ocean and hit the bar. I just love the image of her boyfriend coming in and seeing her undressed on the bed with a stream of crap all over the mattress.
I wonder if the absolute shock of seeing that maybe distracted him from realizing the full context of the situation.
We should get you to a doctor. That's the 3rd time this week. Went to a very alternative punk girl's place for a booty call. She said she wanted to take a bath together and I was all for that. She goes to run water while I finish my drink. We're getting into it and head to the bathroom. We strip down and I get in the bathtub and sit down. Then I looked up at her and she was pulling razor blades out of a cabinet. She wanted to cut me and have me cut her. Nope, I have never gone from soaking wet to fully clothed and walking down a sidewalk so quickly in my life. I ghosted that girl and I have no regrets. She started rubbing my chest in the exact same way my ex used to, and I realized I was still super in love with her and started to cry. She noped the frick out of there. It was after a hookup. I wanted to leave and he tried to cling on to me saying, "Oh, please don't go. I want to show you to my roommate."
Spoiler alert, his roommate was in the freezer in pieces.
Her son coming into the room and sitting down to play Xbox and her telling me it was okay to keep going.
Playing Xbox, he's probably used to people fricking his mum by that point.
When she took off her undies, it immediately smelled like 8 cans of shark crap. I told her I needed a cigarette and hit Mach 3 out of there. She had 5 stars tattooed just above her hoo-ha. Wasn't going to lay pipe, but with ratings like that. I let a woman take me home from a pub here in Edinburgh. She seemed a little bit sleazy, but she had a J-cup. Honestly, that had sort of got stuck in my eye and my imagination. When we got to our place, it was about 2 a.m. There were like 7 kids running around the flat, eating cake and candy and drinking iron brew straight from 2-litre bottles. They were, most of them, about 12 years or less of age, except one sullen 16 to 17-year-old boy who sprawled in the chair staring at me, and a dog running around. I went to the toilet and there was dog crap in the bathtub. The wheels for my mega bosom fantasy night had just fallen off the wagon. I sort of didn't know what to do at first. I didn't want to stay, but I didn't want to tell her in front of our little tribe that I wanted to bail, and then have to sit there and wait for the taxi to turn up on the outskirts of the city, in a housing estate, and risk some sort of confrontation that could turn into a horror show. So I went to bed and fooled around a little bit and then claimed to be too drunk. She drove me home in the morning. No way I was getting involved in that scene. My ex didn't have a rubber, so he wanted to use a sandwich bag instead. I left with so many unanswered questions in my head like, did this guy really ask to use a sandwich bag? Is that a thing? Are people really using sandwich bags as protection? During my drunken single heyday, I met a woman at a bar during my friend's birthday outing with whom I hit it off. We even made out in one of the restrooms. Sleazy, I know. We get back to her place and she informs me that her roommate will be home soon. Turns out he was her on and off again boyfriend who had helped her, financially, to get through her cancer treatment. Overwhelmed and quite uncomfortable, I decided to bolt, despite her insistence. After I left her apartment, I managed to get myself lost in the building and couldn't find a viable exit. I ended up having to crawl out of a window and managed to get out onto the street side near the building. I walked toward the main drag and ran into the birthday boy. We had a drink and parted ways. Single life in New York City never gets old. Spooning after first date wild fun times, he hugs me like a vice and says he's going to take me to Vegas tomorrow and we'll get married. He was dead serious. I was a puff of smoke. For the train of people saying, "You got Mosby'd," and living in the slim hope that I can resurrect my inbox, here's the tail end of this little snapshot into my fun time nopes. I wasn't Mosby'd that time anyway. Whatever the female corollary to "don't put your wang in crazy" is, it applied to this sitch instead. He harassed me for weeks, but silver lining also revealed himself as one of the greatest insult artists on the planet. I wasn't even fully terrified half the time because his diatribes were genius. A few months later, he had found a new target and married her. They're raising his young daughter together and he continues his job as a paramedic, who might just roll up to your car wreck if you live in Atlanta. Every time I see an ambulance from that particular service, I still hold my breath. Managers, what is a Karen experience like, and what was your worst experience?
Oh, I loved Karens when I was managing. Being able to say, "Actually, I am the manager," followed by, "Sorry, that's company policy," always results in a flustered Karen leaving in a huff and a much relieved crew.
Yep, then I would get,
"Well, give me your boss's cell number."
Absolutely not. There's no way in hell I'm giving out his number. You can come in tomorrow when he's here, or call us.
I'll give him the corporate number.
Corporate doesn't give a crap about Karen complaints, and if they do follow up, I explain the situation. Give them the corporate number of your competitor. How delightfully evil. Delightfully devilish, Seymour. Corporate doesn't care, true, but they will solve the problem by giving Karen free stuff. Sorry you had a problem, Mom. Here's a card for 3 free pizzas. My worst Karen was a beauty pageant mum, wanted me to pay for an ad in the back of the patent flyer for $200, claimed she ordered all the time. That's about 20 orders a year, Karen, before I even count expenses. The pageant isn't even being held in my area. Sorry, Karen. When I was working at a bookstore, my mum once called our corporate number because my coworker wouldn't release my work schedule. She was crazy. I bought that coworker a coffee.
Oh, the best is when they ask for the manager, but you are the manager.
It's not as awesome as it sounds. After that, you have to sit there and listen to them whine, knowing full well that if you work for a chain, they'll just file a complaint with corporate, get free products, and you'll have to see them again and possibly get written up. Happened before I became manager, but once while I was serving at Steak and Shake, customer had a coupon for burger, fries, and a shake for X amount of money, can't remember the price anymore. Anyway, on the coupon it specifically stated that cheese on the burger was 39 cents upcharge, although it did have a picture of the burger with cheese on it. Lady threw a fit in the dining room that I was treating her unfairly. It was false advertising, etc., etc. I told her I agree it's false advertising with the picture, but the text specifically states the upcharge and unfortunately I can't do anything about it. The lady at the next table over heard everything and literally got up and put 50 cents on the table to cover it and said something to the effect of,
"I'll pay for your damn cheese if you just shut up."
This teed the lady off even more. My manager obviously sensed the issue and came out, took the cheese up charge of the bill. Like, what the frick, Karen?
Love how the other lady, I think I'll call her Laren, is like the anti-Karen. She probably has daughters.
Oh, to be so bold as to call Karens and Kens out when you see them acting out in public. One day, YouTube narrator, one day you'll realize your full heroic potential. I once had a customer tell me, "Frick you," after arguing with me over 5 cents. He apparently rounded the 3 down, which made me owe him 5 cents. After about 2 minutes of arguing, he stormed off. For the record, the cash register told me exactly how much change to give. Work at a vacuum repair shop. People don't pay attention to their vacuum cleaners as much as you'd think. I can't tell you how many times someone's come in to pick up their vacuum and says, "Oh, this isn't mine," or "Mine didn't have scratches down the side." I can tell you it is, and it came in with all those scratches on the side. After the first 2 times it happened to me, we started taking pictures of the unit with serial numbers and customer info, send them home with the serial number, and require them to bring it back for pickup. Despite the evidence, we've had a lady close to tears because we didn't have her vacuum. Even with the pictures we had of it at drop-off, her information and the matching serial numbers. Sure, it's a big conspiracy. We just love taking in vacuums and switching all the information around because it's fun. People need to pay more attention.
I used to work at Geek Squad and once had this happen when a lady came in to pick up her laptop. She explained that it was all of her information, but the laptop itself wasn't hers. "It's like they took all my stuff and put it into a different laptop." Spoke with her daughter. Turns out she was in the early stages of Alzheimer's. That was my first experience with the disease, and man did it hit hard. And she wasn't even a relative.
I had a male version of a Karen, a Ken. Fairly wealthy, very entitled, and just a butt to work with. We were the contractors doing an extensive remodel of his home, and one of the light fixtures his designers chose was this expensive, custom-order chandelier with a no-return policy. We made sure he signed off on the spec sheet with a picture of the fixture and the no-return policy highlighted. When the chandelier was delivered, he insisted he'd never seen it before and definitely hadn't approved it. He kept insisting on this even after we showed him his signature on the order, even suggesting we'd forged it to cover our mistake on our part. Yeah, because I'm going to go way out of my way to make my life more difficult like that. I used to work part-time at a bakery inside a grocery store. I dealt with my fair share of Karens during this time. Just to paint this picture of how it would work, we had a binder with laminated copies of 100 different designs the decorators did regularly. A customer would look through the book, pick a design they wanted, and fill me in on the details of when they wanted it by, what size, what flavor, if any color changes were necessary, etc. Our decorators would come in at 7 a.m. and stay for however long it took to complete their orders, so usually they were gone by early to mid-afternoon. The bakery closed along with the store at 9 p.m. One day, around 8:15 or 8:20, a woman comes in and says she needs a cake. I figure she's referring to the cakes sitting in our cooler, which we keep at the ready in case anybody just wants something quick and simple. So I motion to the cooler and ask if she sees anything she likes. Apparently, I'm a gosh darn brilliant comedian because she starts laughing and goes,
"No, sweetie, I need a wedding cake."
Alright, no big deal. I grab an order form and take down her information, then ask what day she needs it for.
Tonight.
Mind you, the store is closing in 40 minutes, so even if I could decorate a cake, I wouldn't be able to help her. I tell her that there's no decorators present at the moment, but I could make sure it was ready for her first thing in the morning. She's clearly upset by this, but says that'd be fine. I continue taking her order and ask her what size she'd like. Our bakery was not an upscale joint and our prices reflect that. Just about everything comes in frozen. So for our cakes, they come in a variety of predetermined sizes. She pulls out her phone and thrusts it in my face, saying, "Whatever that is." On the screen is a very beautiful cake, smooth white frosting, 7 to 8 tiers, decorations made in fondant and blown sugar. Before I even continue taking the order and dash her hopes when she sees the finished product, I tell her that just wouldn't be possible. I didn't mean to offend our decorators, but I told her the truth. Most of them were exceptionally gifted home bakers who didn't have formal training in terms of a culinary program or decorating school. I then politely refer her to a more upscale bakery that I knew of that's more equipped to help her than we were. Then the dreaded 6 words came.
"Can I speak to your manager?"
At this point in time, I'd been working at that bakery for a little over a year, so I was capable enough to close the department on my own. As such, I was the only one there. I told her this, but offered to leave a note with the customer's name and number so my manager could call her back.
"Fine then, let me talk to the store manager."
There were anywhere between 1 to 3 store managers who oversaw the entire grocery store and all its departments on staff and night. So I go to our phone and page a store manager over to the bakery department. The whole time we're waiting, she's staring daggers into me. A manager I was fairly friendly with came to the counter in a few minutes and asked what the problem was. I briefed her before she went to talk to the customer. The second we get over there, the customer starts spewing lies about me, how I was rude and refusing to help her. I tried to defend myself, but the manager just told me to keep doing my closing work out back. 10 minutes later, she comes back, shaking her head and rubbing her temples. That witch was crazy. Customer service industry is just a blast, guys.
Wedding planning really brings out the worst in some people.
If you need the cake right now, I guess very little planning was involved.
Wait, she wanted a multi-tiered cake done that night? From a supermarket? Wow!
I was the only person on shift, which made me the de facto manager. 5 minutes before closing, a woman comes in and is so angry that we don't have any decaf. She demands to speak to the manager, and I tell her that's me because I'm the only one here, and the coffee pots are cleaned for the night because it's 5 minutes to close. No, I'm sorry, I can't make another pot just for her. There's another place around the corner. She screams at me, telling me she's going to
find a real manager and get my hoary butt fired.
Throws half a cup of cappuccino machine sludge at me and starts to look like she's going to jump the counter. I'm holding a hammer under the counter, thinking, don't do it, don't do it. I pick up the phone like I'm going to call the cops. She leaves. I lock the door. She comes back and runs face first into the glass door like a bird. Oh, sweet, sweet karma. I hope that for comedic effect she also left a full face print of makeup on the window, and to warn off other foul predators.
Did she give herself brain damage? Fall down? Make eye contact? That's alpha as frick. We need the thrilling conclusion to this saga.
Oh, she fell. At that point, I thought, okay, I may be looking at a middle-class white lady's first time trying serious substances. And I did regretfully have to call the cops to get her so that I could go home without her trying to eat my face or something. She screamed the B word, the C word, implied that I did the deed with men for money, the whole time while I waited for them. When they came and started talking to her, she yelled at them and then calmed the frick down once she realized what was happening. They walked her away from the store. After that, I have no idea because I jogged home pretty quick. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. The staff didn't know it at the time, but our ketchup dispenser was empty. A boy, aged 10-ish, was just smashing down on the handle trying to get ketchup, but none was being dispensed. A staff member noticed the kid smashing finally, so I went out to see what was going on. Oh, the ketchup is empty. I'll get a new bag from the kitchen. Give me 2 minutes and I'll be right back with some new ketchup. I remove the empty container, take it back to the kitchen, clean the dispenser, and place in a new bag. Take it out to the condiment stand and get met by a Karen.
Why did you take the ketchup away from my son?
The ketchup was empty, ma'am, so I replaced the bag.
Why did you take the ketchup away? Go get your manager.
Okay, 1 minute. I walk about 2 meters, turn around, and introduce myself as the manager.
Why did you take the ketchup away from my son?
Mom, please lower your voice. The ketchup was empty. I explained to your son that I needed to take it back to the kitchen and refill it.
No, you didn't. I was standing here the whole time. You took the ketchup away from my son.
Ma'am, please lower your voice. You were not with your son. He was here alone, trying to get ketchup, which was empty.
Don't you tell me what to do. Do you know who you're dealing with?
Nope. Mom, please get your belongings and leave this establishment. Cue the screaming and yelling part of the encounter.
I will not leave this establishment. I'm going to burn this place down.
Other patrons are visibly upset with what they're witnessing. Police are called. Karen gives a statement. Police question me. I give a statement. Karen told the police that I struck her son, pushed him out of the way, and moved the ketchup to an area in which her son couldn't get access to the ketchup. I disputed the claim and offered to provide video evidence with sound of what actually happened. Police watch the video once, thank me, and walk out to the eating area. Ma'am, does your son have someone who can look after him?
His father is at work right now.
Okay, you're being placed under arrest for making threats and a false police report. More yelling, threats, and now tears. In the end, she was charged with making the false police report, but not the threats, and received a lifetime ban from not just our restaurant, but the entire mall our restaurant was located in. I felt kind of bad, not for the Karen, but for her son. He has to live with that. Eating at a cheap, greasy spoon kind of diner that had been around since the 50s. All the meat is frozen, pretty much nothing but the coffee or eggs are made fresh. You know what you're getting when you come to this place. A couple comes in with their 2 young boys, I'd estimate 6 to 7 for either. Mum makes a minor scene about not wanting a booth, wanting a table. There's an entire wall of booths and multiple tables, but she specifically wants the one in the middle of the room that needs to be bussed since the people that were using it just left. She makes a minor scene about having to wait for the one busboy who was handling the entire front of house to come take care of it, when the manager went and got him to take care of it immediately. At this point, I'm not paying too much attention, but they're literally sitting right next to us. They order appetizers, steak, shakes for the kids, etc. Their waitress is handling several other tables at the same time, like a third of the floor, and serves some coffee and sliced pie to an elderly couple that came in after the family. The Karen throws an absolute hissing crap fit because,
we were here first. How come they're getting their orders first?
Manager comes back out and explains in the most placid tones possible that multiple fried goods and steak take time to cook, but hot coffee is available all day and sliced pie is in a display up front, so there's no prep time. Karen calms down, but fumes. Doesn't allow the boys to get their food, buffet option, until her and Dad's food comes to the table. Once the adult food arrives, Karen just starts tucking in. Both boys are just tall enough to see over the edge of the buffet, but not nearly enough to reach tongs or reasonably serve themselves. A waitress from another section sees them struggling and comes over to help, asking what they want on their plates. Karen flies to her feet and makes a big scene this time about,
how dare you tell my kids what they can and cannot eat? Who do you think you are handling their food?
Queue manager coming out again, following demands to complain directly. Waitress is an older woman, we're talking white hair, and is nearly in tears thinking that she's done something terrible. Manager asks her to go chill in the back for a bit while she smooths things over with Karen. Karen demands balloons, they had them as a special birthday thing, for her kids. They get balloons, Karen calms down, husband and kids are pretty quiet. Kids seem visibly embarrassed, husband is acting like this is pretty normal. Husband's steak comes out last. He's unenthusiastic about it, and Karen calls for the manager a 4th time to chew her out over the steak being overdone, dry, etc. They send it back and demand another, then a 3rd. Let me reiterate, this is a place you go for like greasy burgers and fries, fish and chips, etc. Steak is on the menu, but realistic expectations and reason means you're not expecting high quality. You're getting what you pay for. Manager just kept calm and kept apologizing for their suboptimal experience, but beyond filling minor low-cost demands, the balloons for example, they didn't offer up much. When Karen basically screamed that they would never be coming back, the manager was just like, sorry to hear that, have a nice night. Absolute pro at grey rocking.
Bestest of the best interactions I ever had, Karen griped about not wanting to pay the price for the services performed on her computer, which was exactly the price quoted when she dropped it off and which she had signed for. She demanded to speak to the service manager. I called him from the back. Service manager listened to her spiel as to how she should get a lower price because, irrelevant pea-brained reason. Service manager made eye contact with me over her shoulder. I didn't react. He said no. Price quoted was the price that should be charged. She said that was unacceptable and she would be complaining to the owner, who was a good friend of hers. Service manager observed that she was evidently not a good friend since that he, or me, was the person she was originally speaking with when she asked for the service manager. Her face was glorious and made the whole thing worthwhile. This kind of interaction seems to be a sort of dream for a lot of people. Perhaps it will motivate all of you to perform to your utmost at your job so that you too can own the store that a Karen lies about her connections to. I'm not in retail anymore, but I was managing a popular mid-range handbag store. Think typical Karen bag, about $200 to $400.
Anyway, most customers were fantastic. This one woman was this Shrek-looking large red-headed lady who stomped in and demanded that we repair her 20-year-old bag for free. And if we couldn't do that, she demanded that we exchange this old ratty, smelly 20-year-old bag for a brand new one for her. Recently, policy changes had resulted in new prices for this service, but free repairs had about a 1-year warranty on a new bag, not a 20-year-old one. I tell her as such. I was pretty young to have the role I did, so she, dissatisfied with my answer, asked to speak to a manager. I told her I'm the manager, and she began turning as red as her hair. She screamed and yelled about how she'll call corporate and never shop here again. Well, that sounds like a real loss, losing a customer that's too cheap to repair a 20-year-old bag and hasn't bought new from us in just as long. I give her my best crap-eating grin and say,
"I'm so sorry, that's just the policy."
She demands corporate's number. I give her the customer service line that you can find on Google, unbeknownst to her. She huffs away, forgetting her keys on the counter. She's halfway out and she remembers, turns around, red as a beet, huffs in my smiling face and snatches the keys off the counter. It was hilarious. She came back months later, worked with a different person on the team, and didn't even look my way. Oh, heck yes. Buckle up. I worked as a manager at a chain barbecue restaurant. We'll call it Popular Charlie's. There was this lady who we called Nacho Lady. I'll get into why. She was that kind of overweight, holistic living, anti-vax, essential oil military wife.
"My 2-year-old daughter who I talk to like a coherent adult is going to change the world"
type lady, with all the Karen aesthetics to match. We all dreaded her when she came in. We call her Nacho Lady because whenever she comes by, she orders our nachos at our takeout area. No big deal, but she would want everything on the side, which again, no big deal in most situations because I understand that nachos get soggy, especially to go. But what some people don't like or understand is seeing the actual proportions of everything. 2 ounces of anything really isn't that much. That goes for the cheese, chili, beans, nacho sauce, all the works. Even though it's all proportioned equally, the customer doesn't like what they see, and that's where the backlash began with the Nacho Lady, and then the Karen moment started happening. She didn't like the actual proportions, and wanted and demanded more, but refused to pay for it. Our takeout specialists were good enough at standing up for themselves and the rules. Of course, she didn't accept it, so she had to speak to a manager, myself or 2 others, depending on the day. She would also order 2 kids' meals, pork sandwiches and fries. Again, no big deal, but she was very particular about this one as well. The pork had to be dry, no barbecue sauce, in a separate container. Kids' buns toasted, which we don't usually do. The fries had to be dropped as soon as she walks in the door so they're crispy and fresh for when she takes them all the way home. Because of her extreme specifications, it got to the point where only a manager was allowed to take her order, and only a manager could review the order with her. This was always the most nerve-wracking part because she would sit down at our waiting table in the takeout area and open every single box and inspect everything, which we would typically do in the first place, but the way she went about it was very Karen. This was when all the issues would start to happen. Fries were never hot and fresh and crispy enough, sent back to get new ones. Not enough of the portioned pork for the kids' sandwich, demand more. Not enough cheese sauce and shredded cheese, demand more. Not enough tortilla chips, you know, the rest. The list goes on, and to top it all off, she somehow got a hold of a crap ton of free kids' meal coupons that were blank, meaning no manager signature, dates, or any sort of validation that she got legit. A coupon is no big deal, but a typical coupon can only be used one at a time with one transaction. But Karen, being a Karen, demanded that we use 2 out of a giant stack so she gets her kids' meals for free. This got to the point where things had to be run by the GM, even if it means calling him on his day off. He was a bit of a pushover and always allowed it, but she started costing us money. It wasn't feasible for her to keep coming back and having her as a customer, because 19 out of 20 times we would end up having to send stuff back to the kitchen, which would get wasted. My other manager, Billy Joe, was a fierce B-word that never let anyone walk over her. She was awesome. She finally stepped up and made a call over the GM's order and 86'd her. When that moment came, we all huddled in the office and watched the security cameras as Billy Joe ripped her a new one. That was an unforgettable day. I left and got out of the restaurant industry and management because of how toxic that field can be. But I do love that I have a Karen story. I worked at an REI for a while. One story comes to mind involving an ex-Marine who worked at our store fixing bikes. He had to run to the back to grab a part, and as he was going back to the bike shop on the other side of the store, a customer who was already pretty loud and aggressive with everyone decided to grab my coworker by the arm and very aggressively try to spin him around to face him. Marine training kicked in, and the next thing I know, angry customer man is laying in the remains of a display about 8 feet away. Of course, he jumps up screaming and yelling that he's going to sue us and get my coworker fired, and we're all going to jail, yada yada yada. Manager comes out, heard the story, looks at the security footage, and tells the customer he's never allowed to grab employees like that. He's welcome to call the cops if he would like, because she's willing to press charges against him for assault, and he was banned from our store. No one at the store was upset about losing that customer. He was kind of notorious for being a jerk and constantly trying to abuse our return policy. What red flags in interviews have made you decline a job offer? I was once asked during a job interview about my tolerance to verbal attacks. When the person noticed that I was a bit taken aback by the question, he quickly followed up and said to keep in mind he was talking about verbal attacks and not physical ones. I immediately realized that this would not be a job for me, and I excused myself from further consideration for the position.
What kind of job was it? And did the interviewer mean verbal attacks from customers or coworkers, or worse yet, the boss?
I can see how that could be a red flag for some positions, but if you're applying for telesales or jobs where you're likely to have to deal with angry customers, being able to handle verbal attacks is vital.
Interviewer has visible anger issues with other staff. I encountered this at the beginning of my career. They didn't hire me, which was good.
I've legit watched a manager unleash on his coworkers not knowing that I could see him because I was early in my interview. Coincidentally, I took the job just because I knew it would be short-term and my friend worked there. Didn't even get to the interview. Got a call to set up an interview. I say, okay, I can do Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. He says, I need you to come in today. Okay, I need a job, so I say I can try. Where do I need to go? He was an hour away by car. I said I couldn't, and he got all huffy. Like, dude, if you're this crappy when I don't work for you, I don't even want to know how you treat employees. If they need you to interview them right now, then they need you to start working for them right now.
Absolutely do not accept their job offer unless you're absolutely desperate yourself.
Exactly. I looked it up on Glassdoor, and it was very grim. My fiancé had a guy that called for a same-day interview, and he was verbally attacking my fiancé for not being able to come in because our county was under a travel ban because it was a fricking blizzard outside. He passed on that job, obviously. I had a job offer me unpaid bonus hours as a form of community service.
Reminded me of seeing a job posting that said with the position you'd enjoy the variety of working various shifts, holidays, and weekends as needed. Yes, because that's something anyone would enjoy.
Was invited to interview for a remote position, but did some research and found out they made employees install software that took a photo of their face every 9 minutes to ensure they weren't goofing off. Can you imagine? I don't want my employer to have a huge collection of the awkward facial expressions I make. Declined interview. Take 1,000 photos of your face staring at the monitor, install a virtual webcam software, and run those photos in an endless loop. You are now invisible.
Make sure you wear the same color shirt to work each day.
Over the various bad workplace compilations like this that I've done, one thing has become very clear. There are a great many companies out there that would identify the social conditions of George Orwell's 1984 as a goal to aspire to rather than a social warning.
It's a red flag for me if they stumble over what the exact job description is.
Or if they say, we'll work that out later.
Or if they say, duties as assigned.
I've seen this looking for jobs as a software engineer. For us anyway, this isn't a red flag because it's impossible to determine all the duties required when the product itself is ever evolving. For example, I was asked to set up a few build machines because I took good notes when I onboarded, although that was never in the job description. We were a small company, so it made sense to have few engineers handle things such as this, rather than hire another employee to handle all of it. Oh, and they say, you decide how much you make.
I agree, meaning that if you take that job, it'll be brutal work to go over minimum wage. When you walk through the site and you don't see a single person smiling. I don't mean those fake customer service smiles either. If everyone there looks miserable, I'm out. Life is too short for that.
Even worse, when a couple of people are shaking their head no when you make eye contact with them. I had one person do that to me when I was being interviewed for a personal assistant job. He kept looking at me, then I noticed the subtle head shakes. He was leaving. I would have been taking over his position. The woman did seem a tad nightmarish. I declined when the guy left. Glad he gave me warning.
Oh, I totally agree, but I also want to tell you how it is at my workplace. Most of the time while working, we're having an absolute blast and joking around all the time. But if our boss walks past us with a stranger, we all close our mouths and continue working, but very focused on our work, so we don't make the impression that our whole workshop is filled with a bunch of absolute goofballs.
In a lot of industries, we work really long hours sometimes, so we're really looking for someone who's willing to put in the hours and is interested in making a bigger impact. Is code for, we're looking for someone to sacrifice their weekends on the altar of our arbitrary goals and expectations because we can't be bothered to pay a second person for the role. It's the old, we work hard and play hard deal. That just means everyone works long hours and then goes out to happy hour once a week. Happy hour slowly becomes something that kind of feels like more work and something that you're obligated to go to. Or becomes one donut on Friday, and only one donut. We had the mythical company fishing trip that was promised for the end of every season. I finally shut that crap down forever one hot day when the boss asked, "Where would you like to go on the company fishing trip?" This year, I said, I would actually like to go fishing, and it was never mentioned again. I used to be in commercial fishing, and one of my first skippers gave me this advice. When you're checking out a potential boat to take position on, make sure to look at the engine room first. If it's neat, clean, and orderly, then that's a solid vessel to be working on. If it's filthy, cluttered, and in disarray, then get off the boat and don't take the job. Oh, please expand. I'm interested to know the reasoning behind this. The type of captain that allows the most important part of his vessel to be a huge mess all the time is also the type to cut corners and operate in a generally unsafe manner while out at sea. I'm sure there's plenty of exceptions to this, but when my life is in their hands for months at a time, I want to know darn well that they can take condition of their vessel seriously. Arr.
Additionally, a well-kept boat is a sign of a good crew. Pay on a fishing boat is dependent upon the value of the catch. You'll earn more on a good crew.
Most of my work has been lineman work for cable or telephone providers and driving trucks, and if they start asking about prior workers' comp claims, then I'm out. I've had owners ask me if I got hurt, would I allow them to let them take care of it and keep the government out of it? Yeah, no way.
We're lax on safety and unwilling to improve, so we'd rather cover up problems than prevent them. Your health and well-being mean nothing to us.
Anyone using the phrase work hard and play hard during the interview? I once asked, what exactly do you mean by play hard, with air quotes around play hard? The interviewer was befuddled and then said something like, we get donuts and bagels once per quarter. Man, talk about living on the fricking edge.
We don't offer benefits, job security, or dignity. However, we do have a foosball table and a coffee machine in the break room.
Yep, if you want your work to have a great atmosphere, treat your employees well. Don't just have some weird forced socialization once a year where you're jammed into the break room with the one employee that can only talk about photos of their cat. Right after college, I got an interview to be a store manager for an Abercrombie & Fitch clothing store. Before the interview, I was told to dress in my own personal style, but that in clothes would be preferred. I was given a list of what that meant. At the interview, I was asked to make fun of or be judgmental of people walking around us, what they were wearing, their style, hairstyles, designs, or shirts, etc. For example, when a lady walked past us wearing jeans and red Mickey Mouse sweatshirt, the lady interviewing me scoffed and said,
"Can you believe her wearing that out in public? I mean, what is she, like 12?
I shrugged and said, what does it matter if that's her style? I didn't get the job. I realized she was trying to see if I was a judgmental prick, and when I wasn't, she chose not to hire me. Later on, I found out this was standard practice for Abercrombie.
You should have just gone way too far immediately. Looks like her gunt is sticking out.
They look like they murdered a homeless person to get that outfit.
Just make a real frickin' meal out of it, you know?
Or take the opportunity to roast the interviewer.
Like, what is that top you're wearing? What are you trying to do? Signal the aliens from the cosmos with all those sequins? Also, I would prefer not to work weekends. When can I start?
I used to work at their headquarters and my job was basically to fold clothes, apply tags, and sort them. Their CEO at the time, I think his name is Michael Jeffries or something. Anyway, he's a crazy substance head in his 50s, and he used to walk by every now and again and give people fist bumps and referred to us as dude and bro. We were all either young 20s or teenagers. He also had calf implants and wore mandals around everywhere. Seeing your anecdote about that company doesn't surprise me at all, being that their CEO was trying to live his teen years while running the company. Last year, I declined an offer to work at a company with a couple of friends for 2 reasons. 1, as part of the interview process, I had to complete an assignment, and I hated the assignment. 2, I got a vibe from my friends that they weren't super happy at the company. Since turning down the offer, both of the friends have complained to me about their boss, and one of them told me that their unlimited paid time off policy basically doesn't mean anything because they don't get to take much time off.
Absolutely. In my company, paid time off is called earned time, because you earn it through working. The expectation is that you can use up that time whenever you want, and if your manager doesn't like it, they'd better have a darn good reason to deny it. I've never heard of anyone getting denied. Much better than trying to guess exactly what the limit is to unlimited. People who visibly show that they haven't looked at your resume. I have no issues going in depth about my experience or things that may need clarification, but to blatantly not know anything about the person interviewing shows they don't even value their potential employees at a minimum. I've interviewed way too many people that didn't know what they had on their own resume. Well, that's different. Some people are chronic liars, but you can kind of tell once you sit down with them. When I was an OPS manager for a delivery company, I got a lot of those, and it's amazing how many people will lie for even a super basic job. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Asking for a fee before you can get started.
The extra E stands for expense.
Jobs pay you, pyramid schemes ask you to buy their crap up front and sell them. This happened to me. I made the right decision noping the frick out of there despite being desperate for a job at the time. Stress interview. I walked into one of these for a PhD interview. They deliberately were abrasive and unhelpful to the point of callousness, including tossing my entire proposal out of the window. After proposing a different approach, I then got criticized for not reading up on the proposal that they had given me in the same interview. Also, my lack of skills for such an approach, again given to me in the gosh darn interview. I was happy to change approach, but I can't generate years worth of experience with a click of my fingers. They ended up offering me a position, but without funding. Then I asked them if they had any ideas on where to apply for funding for this niche area. No response, I just ignored them after that. If anyone tries that on me in another job, I'm walking straight out the door. Life is too short for such nonsense. If they ask if you're on medications, and if so, what medications and why?
That's definitely illegal where I live.
Same, so I would legit throw that interview on purpose and waste their time for being such complete crapbags. I explained that I was in school and outlined my availability. He asked if I was fine skipping all of my classes on Thursdays because that's when they need me.
No? Will you pay me for the credit hours I'm missing? No? Then no.
That's a bold request for what I assume wasn't even a well-paying job, given that it was probably part-time while someone was in school. The mixture of employees. If there are lots of new employees, and if they have hiring ads, run. They likely rip through employees. Also, beware the places that have a lot of people who have been there forever and no one who has been working there for an intermediate amount of time. In my experience, it turned out that this place had a lot of old-timers and new hires, because the new people would be excluded and chewed up. My current company has this problem, and us new hires have started having our own meetings while the old crew is in their endless 9 a.m. meeting every day. Our meetings go something like, has anyone ever actually seen the exemption list that Todd's going on about, or do we think it only exists in his head? Alright, battle plan for this week is to trick him into confirming or denying as many clients as possible are or aren't on the list. Then the next week we type up the document, pass it around to everyone, and bring in donuts to distract them from asking questions about where we got this document from. I would watch this show. Years ago, I was about to be hired to work full-time in a car parts factory. I was at a second interview when the interviewer told me that upon being hired, I would need to see the doctor once every 3 months and sign a bunch of paperwork basically stating that if I got any respiratory or reproductive illness as a result of working around the fumes in that factory, that I understood and took full accountability for the consequences. I left and never went back. If I hear the culture is work hard, play hard, I'm out. That translates to, we beat you like a rented mule, and then throw a tragic Christmas party with a limited open bar. The interviewer was selling me on taking the job more than I was selling myself on getting the job. The interviewer gave me feedback on revising my resume, offered to advance me to the next interview round and coach me on how to handle the interview, etc. Never been offered that much support before or since. Really put me on guard and I turned down the job. About a year later, I ran into her while having lunch at a restaurant. I actually didn't recognize her at first because she had a big smile on her face, but was dead serious during my job interview. She admitted that company had been a stressful place to work. She now worked somewhere else and was much happier. I also backed out of a job opportunity because of similar reasons. I had a phone interview which seemed to go well. I was working full-time, so I had to schedule interviews and follow-ups around my current job. The people in the place that I interviewed wanted me to come in for a face-to-face, but I needed a couple of days to sort out my schedule at my current job. Over those next couple of days, they called me repeatedly, like 3 or 4 times a day, after I clearly told them that I would call them in a couple of days with some available times. That raised a lot of red flags, so I told them that I was no longer interested. I later found out the place was an absolute sweatshop and that the turnover there was terrible. Go figure. For me, it's the schedules. Someone offered me a job where I would often have to do 12-hour shifts and have meetings until 11 p.m. All of this for minimum wage. I'm 46, I can't do 12-hour shifts on my feet all day anymore. I'm 27 and due to a spinal injury, I'm lucky to be walking on my own again. I can't be on my feet for that length of time either, nor can I reliably lift 50 or more pounds or twist and bend over frequently. I'm fairly jacked due to a fixation on working out and sports conditioning before my injury, so when I explain that I can't do those things, I've gotten ridiculous and even nasty looks from interviewers, 2 of whom even called me out for just being lazy on the spot. I got up and walked out of both of those interviews immediately. If I was lazy, I wouldn't have this physique, and I'm already mortified by my own loss of mass due to being incapable of maintaining my workouts from 3 years ago. I don't need some middle manager thinking they know better than my freaking doctors do, and I certainly won't stand to be called lazy by someone who's never seen me work. They ask a lot of questions about something on your resume that isn't really relevant to the job you're applying for or of interest to you, and hint that they want you to do that as well. If it's something you don't mind or actually enjoy, that's fine, but be careful of getting locked into a role different from the one you interviewed for. Would you be willing to give up a few of your vacation days to help out some of your fellow co-workers finish their work? No. That's the first time I've seen this kind of proposal. Surely it can't be that common. Surely they can't ask you to give up time with your family. Oh wait, of course this must happen all the time now I think about it.
We do more with less. Translated,
we will overwork you and not pay you for it. Ah yes, the first job I landed out of college was in a newsroom where the motto was, us 4 and no more. As in, 1 sports reporter, 2 general assignment reporters, and 1 editor overseeing things. They refused to hire more people onto their staff even as the economy improved, and haven't given employees a raise since 2007. You also didn't have a set schedule, and would cover things anywhere between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., oftentimes at a few hours' notice, so working another job to make ends meet was impossible. How that place is still functioning is beyond me, especially since you can literally work fast food and make more money these days. We're a human-sized company with a great startup spirit, which translates to unpaid extra hours and micromanagement.
That's like the definition of sugarcoating a really crappy job and wearing many hats.
Had an interview where the interviewer said, "So you probably made, what, like 40K last year?" I had made double that, and I knew that if I went with this company, I'd only make a little more than 40K. If he hadn't said that, I probably would have taken the job. One thing I experienced was as follows. The manager met me at my job and said I seemed like I would have a knack for the line of work he's in. I, being unhappy in my current job, perked up hoping this would be a good transition opportunity. First red flag, he didn't tell me to come by an office or job location for an interview, but to meet up for lunch. Again, being young and naive, I didn't see anything wrong with that. Fast forward to the lunch. I began to notice what was going on, but didn't want to be rude. Second red flag, the guy tried not to mention the company name. Toward the end of the interview, he asked me, "So, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your interest level?" And I asked him the name of the company, and once he told me, I let him know that I was going to research the company to see if I wanted to continue with the process. Long story short, the company was Primerica, which in my opinion is the worst MLM scheme that I know of. If you do a little research, I'm sure you'll agree. My friend calls it a firing squad when you walk into an interview and you're seated in front of multiple people who just start shooting off questions at you. No conversation, no emotion, nothing to make you feel at ease. Strictly Q&A. After years at a company, I went on my first interview, very rusty. They wouldn't even ask me to expand on a few points. I was discouraged until I went on another one that was 1,000 times better. Just me and a few people sitting at a round table discussing my skills and such. I learned the former kind of interview is the one at a place where I don't want to work at. When the information the job interviewer gives you doesn't even match the job listing. When they make you sit at 2 different rooms for a good 30 minutes before it starts. Job hunting can be one of the most demoralizing processes to go through. When the HR interviewer has a huge fake smile, but while they lead me to the meeting room where the technical part will take place, I see a lot of burned out people with dead eyes and zombie-like faces. I study history and I work for a gardener to earn some money. Once I applied for a job in an archive because the job would have a lot more to do with my major. The interview was terrible. They made me talk about gardening for nearly an hour. Interviews usually last 30 minutes where I live. I wanted to talk about my achievements in history because of the obvious connection to the archive, but all they wanted to know was how to trim trees and hedges. Also, they said that I'd have to be there at 8 a.m. to work and emphasized on how early that is and asked if I could handle that. When I said yes, they didn't believe me. I started gardening at 0750, so a lot of these weird questions. There's a big company in my province. Apparently they have pretty strict interviews, but in the end you have to meet the CEO, and you get to talk to him about whatever topic comes up. Friend of a friend talked about Clydesdales for 45 minutes. He got the job. I had an interviewer once that went ballistic on me when she found out I was engaged. She started off asking me where we were having the wedding and then went nuts, telling me that people have already gotten divorced over this position and I need to seriously consider it. I told her I'd already talked the position over with my fiancé and we were both prepared for it. She said I needed to talk it over again because there was no way we were ready. I noped the frick out of there after that. What the heck kind of position is this where the engagement status matters? What's the craziest thing that happened in a party during your high school and college years? I saw a 140-pound French-Canadian tear a sink out of a wall, run outside, and smash it to pieces against a tree. By the time we'd woken up the next morning, he'd already gone to Home Depot, brought a new sink, and installed it in the bathroom. French at night, Canadian by day. First they're sour, then they're sweet. One of my friends and I were at a house party. She drank 8 shots of tequila, one right after the other, and then proceeded to do the deed bareback up the butt on the front lawn while everyone watched. Not one of her finest moments. She's a Mormon now, apparently. We had a pet raccoon for 2 days, long party, who would hang out with us. We thought he was a nice furry guy, but then he betrayed us. We were pretty drunk, he left, came back with friends, looted our house. I don't want to be anti-raccoon, but it's hard for me to trust them now. If you read this, Fritz, reconsider. Come back and we'll start over. Sly Cooper strikes again.
Hey, don't be raccoonist, dude.
I got drunk off my butt and wandered off to McDonald's, which was like a mile off campus. I don't remember even leaving, but I got a call a week later from the McDonald's saying I didn't get the job because I didn't go to the interview. I guess in my drunken state I got there and realized I had no money, so I must have sat there and applied for a job. Didn't remember a thing. They called to ask if I wanted to reschedule, but my reaction was, "What the frick are you talking about?" So they kindly informed me that they didn't need my assistance. The dude must have thought I was an idiot. I should have explained that better.
That's probably how most people start working at McDonald's.
It's a contract bound in blood. Their own blood. Got busted by a police helicopter while drinking at the lake. Spotlighted us and yelled at us over a bullhorn to stay while 6 officers, complete with 2 K9 units, came down to where we were, gathered everybody up, walked us to where we parked our cars, searched us, cited one kid for having green herb, and then let us all go. It was pretty surreal. In conclusion, drank a couple of Keystones, got a 5-star wanted level. I forgot to include my favorite part of the story, so I'd rode to the party with 4 of my good friends. All of us were 17, except one dude who was 18, but being idiot teenagers, we all smoked cigarettes. They pretty much caught us by surprise with the spotlight. I mean, seriously, who the frick expects a police helicopter? So we didn't have time to ditch anything. There were about 20 of us altogether, so when we were all being escorted back to our cars in a big group, us 4 managed to pass our smokes off to the one guy old enough to have them. When the cops searched us, my friend ends up pulling 5 packs of cigarettes and 2 or 3 cans of chewing tobacco out of his cargo shorts and sets them on the hood of his car. The cop is not impressed and is like, "Son, you want to tell me why you have so much tobacco?" And I crap you not, with a straight face, my friend just replies, "Because I like a little variety." In fairness to the cop, that answer sounds really shady. I can definitely understand why he thought you were covering for something. Last year, a few of my friends hosted a party at their house. The toilet got clogged and everyone just kept using it and layering toilet paper up, eventually rendering the toilet useless. So now everyone who had to pee did so in the bathtub. Same thing happened and now the bathtub is clogged. By the time any of the guys who lived there heard about it and walked upstairs to the bathroom to investigate, you have to walk past the laundry room to get there, they see a girl sitting on the dryer taking a tinkle in it. She claimed that multiple girls did it right before her, so she thought it was okay. In conclusion, girls are more disgusting than boys.
Why the frick didn't everyone take a tinkle outside?
It was a duplex-style house. They lived on the top floor and some other girls lived below them with no interior stairs between the two. So everyone who came had to come up the stairs outside and into the second floor. The cops busted it and said there were probably 200 plus people there, all on one floor and on the steps outside. Not a lot of space to move. Plus, we live so close to our uni's campus, the idea is to keep everyone inside to avoid both university and city police shutting it down. I had a friend who lucked into a very well-paying job right out of high school. He would pay for hotel rooms to party in, and as we all still lived with our parents, it was a cool thing to do, I guess. We had a party one night when Nickelback was playing in our city, and the opening band was the Trues. We didn't really care about the show, we just happened to want to party that night. Around 2 a.m. I left the room for some reason, and there was one super drunk dude carrying a bus bin full of booze. He insisted I was the guy from the Trues and followed me back to the room and got us all a bit drunk. We kept saying that we weren't the Trues, but he really thought we were, and at the end of the night, well, early morning, he left and said he was a huge fan and it was an honor to party with his favorite band, and he drove all the way from Ontario to see us. So somewhere in Ontario, there's a guy who tells all of his buddies that he partied with the Trues. Oh, and another time my buddy shattered a hotel room toilet with 2 lesbians.
Can you elaborate on that last bit, please?
Well, we were a bunch of awkward dudes fresh out of high school. Sometimes the hotel parties were absurd and crazy, and other times it was just a bunch of guys sitting around laughing at our buddy for buying a hotel room for a bunch of dudes. The lesbian night was one of the more intense parties. A friend of mine found a guy we went to high school with on the bus with 2 lesbians. They were the last people to arrive to the already overcrowded hotel room and there wasn't much space left. The lesbians hung out in the bathroom, and the guy who brought the room, let's call him Jamie, really had to pee. They said something to him that involved him peeing in there while they watched. He went for it because beer, and nobody else went in there for about 20 minutes. After 20 or so, the 3 of them stumble out laughing and Jamie told me to go look. Sure enough, the whole gosh darn toilet was shattered. No blood or anything, but that thing was wrecked. He never explained how it happened, but I'm sure it was a good time. I think we got booted out of the hotel at like midnight that night, which was a record. To everyone in the hotel industry, I apologize for being that guest. We were young and dumb. I'm in the industry myself now, and anytime I deal with a real butthole guest, I know it's karma coming back. The host of the party decided to get into his unregistered car without license plates, without insurance, and without a license, and as drunk as the day is long. He drove the wrong way through a traffic circle, roundabout, and ran into a road sign. His best friend then screamed his name across the road, a neighbor called the cops, told them his name, etc. He was taken in and blood tested with 2.2 milliliters. He was let go, but he can't reapply for his license until 2018. Original post from 2014. Invite a friend over to drink late night. 10 minutes later, he calls us saying he's in the living room. He's nowhere to be found. I look outside to see 2 cop cars and his car in the neighbor's driveway. Turns out he walked to my friend's neighbor's house, drunk off his butt, asking where we were at like 2 a.m. A girl got drunk and passed out. Some guys pooped on her face and took pictures. This happened 2 to 3 years ago. She has a lot of Twitter followers now. High school, my house party. Guy asks me if he can shoot some other kid and shows me a gat. I tell him not on my property and not at my party. He apparently respected that. Later, he gets drunk and cuts his own stomach open, about 1 inch deep, 8 inches wide. You can clearly see each layer of skin and fat. He then goes around talking with it like it's Jim Carrey's rectum. We eventually convince him much later to go to the hospital, as he previously refused because he was afraid they were going to commit him to the psych ward. But by then, they told him it had been too long and they could only debride and dress it. He has a massive scar now, although he's much more sane and stable these days. 2 guys fought over a homely girl. One later pulled a knife on the other while he was asleep and attacked him through the neck. Stabber, blood alcohol content of around 0.3 if I recall correctly, has no memory of the event, and he did 15 years in jail. The stabbee had a blood clot, led to a stroke, led to debilitating brain damage. Took him about 10 years to recover his mental faculties. One of my best friends was thrown out of a window in the buff while doing the deed with a girl.
Was he mid-coitus while in the air? I feel like you should have disclosed this.
He gave a flying frick. So the whole story of this is that this is my best friend who just has women fall into his lap. Charisma out the wazoo. He goes to the club in town and winds up meeting a girl there. They dance it out, their feelings I guess, though a dance battle for supremacy could be cool, and he winds up going to a party with this girl. Well, apparently at some point at this party she told her friends that this other guy was trying something untoward towards her. And then later she dragged my friend upstairs for the doing of the deed. They're happily plowing away when the friends burst in, thinking that my friend is the other guy she talked about, committing the unspeakable act. Hijinks ensue, friend goes out the window, girl explains, and they let him back in. Now, I don't know if he kept his hard eggplant on this whole time, but I like to think that he came back in and then he came back in. This is also the guy who had a Ukrainian exotic dancer pull him into the shower to have fun with him. Some say she's still out there saving up funds to pull him into another bathroom and do it all again. I mean, I desperately want the entire life story of the defenestrated, charismatic Ukrainian dance seducer to be real, but dare I hope? It sounds too great to be true. I would kill for his autobiography if it is. Guy walked into the party and no one knew him. He walked around for a few minutes, then pulled out a piece, shot the refrigerator 2 times, and then calmly walked out. I live in Isla Vista, where basically Party Central is located on a street right on the cliffs over the ocean. I was at an AITA day party, everything is all good, people were intoxicated and having a good time. Then all of a sudden we hear screams and people start freaking out. Someone fell off the cliffs. Turns out it was my friend, who went over to his death. That was definitely one of the most crazy and traumatic experiences of my life, along with the shootings that happened here in Isla Vista last weekend. Moral of the story, don't pee off cliffs into the ocean when you are blackout drunk. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. College. Guy goes upstairs to pass out. Girl is already in the bed of his choosing. Amazing sounds of them doing the deed. Morning after, horrible screaming. Guy and girl turn out to be siblings. Was at a Halloween party and passed out on top of a cooler. I was awoken by my friend saying that the cops were there and we had to run. So my friend and I were dressed up as a geisha girl, Cinderella, Abby Cadabby, and Tinkerbell, all running down the road trying to avoid an MIP. We make it to a 7-Eleven and call my friend's boyfriend to take us home. He shows up dressed as Batman and intoxicated. He drives us home and on his way home gets pulled over and flees on foot. He then goes home and reports that someone in a Batman costume stole his Jeep and got away with it. Went to a house party freshman year of high school in Europe. It was this rich girl's apartment in a pretty high building, 10 to 12 stories. She lived on the top floor of this building, and after getting drunk and a little high, Towelie style, I started feeling pretty confident in myself. She had a small balcony and it was next to her neighbor's balcony, which was about a 2-meter gap of nothing all the way down in between. In my drunken stupor, I decided that moment would be the first time I said, "Hold my beer." I stood up on the handrail and jumped across to the other balcony and back completely drunk. The second jump really put how high up I was into perspective when I looked down in the middle of the jump. Landed safely, but gosh, that could have ended poorly. Happened leaving a party. High school. 3 of my white friends went to juvenile detention and I didn't, even though I was in the same car busted for green herb. I'm black, but I'm also a smooth talker. More details, it was all their stuff and I barely even touched it, so I wasn't willing to take equal punishment for cruising with them. I was like, "Please officer, I haven't touched it, and I still have a curfew. If you're going to hold me, I need you to let me contact my parents." They called my mum to come pick me up. Friends say I wimped out. I say I played my cards right. Those officers probably tell that story all the time right before they say, "See, I'm not racist." Oh, that one was totally cool. It was so weird. I was messing around with my friend, beatboxing and white boy dancing to ourselves, and some black guys came over and started rapping to our beatbox. Then someone got shot and I ran to my car, but on my way a pizza place, Diamond Pizza, was closing and gave me free pizza. Yes, this happened in Philadelphia. On a break from college, my friends all got together for a small party. One of my best friends brought her new boyfriend that none of us had met. I guess he was really nervous and trying to show off because he challenged all the guys there to a shot contest in which he claimed he could take 3 shots for every one they took and still not get drunk. Well, you can imagine how that ended up. He got obliterated. Long story short, he ended up breaking a marble table, how? Choking out his girlfriend, our friend right in front of us, and ultimately pulling a piece on the guys that tried to drive him home, essentially creating a small-scale hostage situation in front of the house. Scariest night of my life, not knowing if my friends were going to get shot as we were hiding inside the locked house. Luckily, the cops came with no problems, and he spent a week or two in jail. I've got a few from just one night. My best friend, our substance dealer, was having a huge house party. Probably 60 to 70 of us there, nearly everyone tripping balls. Long story short, the cops have us all lined up against a wall, chewing butt and searching our pockets. Cop finds a little balloon full of white powder on my buddy next to me. "What's this, huh? You gonna tell me what this is?" My friend, screaming and spitting in the cop's face, "It's flour, you frickin' pig!" I was trying so hard not to laugh I was shaking. It was flour. We were stuffing it in balloons and playing with it. Almost 25 years later, we're still laughing about it. "You get the crime lab results back on that balloon?" "Yes, sir. They said they made gravy with it." I saw a guy on substances eat some other guy's ear. We were having the good old parties back in college when a guy went crazy. He literally ripped the dude's ear off and started munching on that little fricker. Someone called the cops and he was arrested. 2 years later, he was arrested again when a number of minors were found in his basement. Watched a girl get launched through the back of a car window. The evils of alcohol, man. It was a fight between a friend and her significant other at the time. Events like this happened frequently when they drank together, though never this serious. We were all out in the street. They were screaming at each other and swinging around violently. He just picked her up and threw her, through the windshield. This guy was pretty big, but my friend is also 5'1", maybe 100 pounds soaking wet. Somehow, she didn't press charges, but the police did. Lots of people were subpoenaed, but because everyone was too hammered to correctly or accurately recount the incident, it got thrown out. Oofed. When I hear about instances like this, I can see why so many people think that green herb should be the default party substance over alcohol. Whole new set of problems, but stories like this make you think at least the aggression would be toned down. The foreign exchange student from Sweden took too much of a certain substance and ended up dancing in the living room with his pants and briefs pulled down. There he was in the living room of a massive party with his tiny little eggplant swinging back and forth. He was kicked out and kept coming back dancing with his pants at his ankles. He came back the next day to apologize. It was his first week being a foreign exchange student at our school. Yes, a meme was made. The image is literally ingrained into my psyche. His eggplant was so small. I was at a going-away party for somebody I didn't know very well, but I knew many of the people that were there and they'd invited me. There were maybe 30 to 40 people there. About 2 hours into the party, a few of my friends and I decided to go and have a smoke on the front porch. I met the person that we were having the party for, I'll call him Chris for the sake of this story, and we seemed to get along nicely. Chris was a good guy. After a few minutes of conversation, he walked back into the house, leaving me and my buddies outside. That's where everything went nuts. These two girls had shown up to the party and nobody seemed to want them around. I didn't know them personally, but I knew that they were not the kind of people you'd want to associate with. I heard some arguing just behind me at the entrance of the house, a few feet away between the girls that just arrived and Chris. Chris was asking them very nicely to leave the party as they were causing a disturbance to the other guests. These two girls were having absolutely none of that and continued to scream utterly stupid crap into his face without listening to what he had to say. This went on for about a minute or so I started to ignore what was going on and just continued to talk to friends. Suddenly I heard a scream and somebody yelled, "You stabbed him, you crazy freaking B-word!" I quickly turned around and one of the girls had stuck a knife into his stomach and there was blood everywhere. The girl pulled the knife out of him and began to run down the street. The police came and rushed Chris to the hospital, but unfortunately he didn't make it and died in the ambulance. The girl was caught after about 2 days in the city next to mine. I went to court as a witness, as did many others, and the girl is getting 15 years in jail. I wish she got life because she deserves to rot. Come July and it will be 2 years ago that this happened now. In conclusion, I went to a party where someone was killed over asking these girls to leave his own going-away party. A friend of mine thought it would be hilarious to take a dookie hanging from a tree. So he climbed up about 25 feet, dangled by his legs around a branch, then proceeded to drop a huge fudge dragon right into the back of his white t-shirt that he was wearing. Rave party in a church. Some dreadlocked dude in a Jesus costume did the deed with a girl in the priest booth above the DJ stage. I was outside peeing in some nice bushes when I looked up and holy frick, Aurora Borealis. Living in Washington, this has never happened before. I proceeded to run inside to tell everyone, but they thought I was just drunk. In their defense, I was, and very enthusiastic, and making crap up. Their loss. Aurora Borealis, at this time of year, at this time of day, in this part of the country, localized entirely within your kitchen. So this one time, I went down to visit my friends in Cork. 2 of them were twins, and throwing an 18th. It was a great night, and everyone got really drunk. Around 4 a.m., everyone started to look for a place to sleep. Unfortunately, one of the rooms containing 3 beds and a few sleeping bags had been occupied by one of the twins and his girlfriend. So 14 of us had to all pile into one double bed. I was sleeping between one of the twins and another friend of mine. He was talking non-stop with some girl, but I didn't mind because I had somewhere to sleep. About 3:30, I'm talking to my friend when his face suddenly turns white. From behind me, I hear a slow creaking sound. It slowly gets louder. I was in shock. After a minute, he stops and I hear a sigh. I hold up my hand and he high-fives me, and that is how my best friend lost his virginity. In conclusion, friend lost virginity in a bed with 14 people, followed by a high five. In high school, after our track team won the county title, which we weren't supposed to win, we all wanted to get really drunk, but had nowhere to do so. That's when one of the seniors suggested that we drink at the abandoned house across the street from his. It wasn't really abandoned, it was fully furnished, just didn't have electricity on, and the owners had been MIA for a few months according to him. The party itself was pretty cool, a majority of the people brought lanterns and flashlights along with the hooch. It started getting out of hand, and at its peak about 150 people were there, which isn't really huge, but for our high school that was quite large. That's about when the cops showed up, which was standard practice for our parties. We all booked it, and since most of us were in peak physical condition, the cops pretty much gave up chasing us after a block. All of us got away, except my best friend. In his escape, he jumped out of a first-story window and landed on a cop. He pretty much just gave up at that point. Someone yelled, "Fusro da," and then loudly crapped themselves.
Please elaborate.
The guy had drunk like 7 shots of vodka in an hour. He had been giggling at the slice of the pizza he had dropped on the floor and then started crawling around on the floor. He yelled that and then crapped himself. It was pretty funny, but the smell was awful. What's the craziest reason you've had to fire an employee? Employee 1 wearing earplugs on a string. Employee 2 comes up behind Employee 1 and decides to yank on the string, which pulls earplugs out of ears very fast. This causes a vacuum in the ear canal and effectively pops your eardrums outward. It hurts real bad. Employee 1 got mad, yelled, and possibly cussed Employee 2. Employee 2 decides he doesn't like Employee 1's attitude about the situation. Employee 2, who's an amateur boxer, punches 1 to lay him out on the floor.
Employee 2 is a marvelous piece of work. All that amateur boxing must have knocked the sense right out of his head.
Before this incident, Employee 2 graced me with a conversation. Why he felt the need to say these things to me, I don't know. Maybe this lends legitimacy to the theory that he had the sense knocked out of his head. I think it just gives insight into a crappy human. Employee 2 was married and had a newborn or toddler. Apparently, his underage teen niece would babysit with another friend keeping company. Employee 2 indicated he thought both teens were hot and had a number of ideas about them that were extremely inappropriate. He slashed my tire after I told him to go to work instead of sitting in the break room.
He obviously didn't want to go back to work, so I think you did him a favor.
I gave my secretary a document that I wanted incorporated into a letter I had written, and she hucked the document like a frisbee into her trash can. It was literally my only copy, so I had to walk over and fish it out. That was her last day.
What the frick? Man, you must have more stories. How did she interview?
She was already there when I started. She worked for someone else but had problems with that person, so they tried putting her with me.
Who would have thought she had problems with another person?
Had an employee, a nurse, who was drinking on the job, snuck vodka in a plastic water bottle. We became suspicious when she began behaving erratically. Then we noticed that she was super possessive of her bottle and never let it leave her sight or let anyone else near it. She messed up and left it at her desk when she went to the bathroom. So we sniffed it and she was busted. Hot mess that woman was. Almost identical to my story at my job. She had an irreplaceable water bottle. One day in a downpour, she had to go out to her car to get her magic water bottle. Came back loaded and soaking wet. She never made it back to her desk. And here I am wondering if with that last sentence they mean that she was fired for being obviously loaded, or whether she didn't make it back to her desk because she hit on a coworker, tripped and fell and then spewed up in her handbag. I was part of a group of IT contractors together for a large international project. The client would get us apartments to live in at each implementation site for 6 to 12 months. A member of my team got into a disagreement with the CTO when he came to visit our site, which resulted in her screaming personal attacks at him in the hallway when he tried to step outside to de-escalate the argument. She was fired on the spot, but then proceeded to go back to the apartment provided by the company and completely wreck it. The site was in the middle of the desert, and she had opened all of the windows and doors, turned the AC on max, stopped all of the drains and turned the water on, threw red nail polish all over the bathroom. It was the most extreme breakdown in a professional environment I've ever seen. I never learned of any follow-up, i.e. legal action, I think because the CTO was embarrassed he had to ask us to check her apartment since he'd already left town. While I didn't fire her, I was offered the chance to work with her again 12 years later via anonymous reference, and obviously rejected her as a candidate. Think twice about burning that bridge, or at least how you do it. I once had an employee Snapchatting as he drove an ambulance with a crew member and patient in the back through an intersection during a red light. Rubbing a pregnant co-worker's belly 3 times after being asked to stop and then asking her if her husband was good at doing the deed. I fired him and he asked if we could still be friends. No. Then he tried to file for unemployment after only working there for 3 weeks, part-time.
We had a similar guy like that in our company. He was only with us for about 2 months before it happened. We were having our annual Christmas dinner and he was putting his arms around one of the managers all night and grabbing her hand when she got up to leave for the bathroom or whatever and asking her where she was going. He wasn't even drunk and he was asked about 5 times to stop it before she actually shouted at him in the middle of the restaurant. Didn't see him around after that night. One of our delivery drivers was supposed to be training a new employee, basically driving around and introducing them to routes and customers and that kind of thing. Well, he told the new driver to just drop him off at the park down the street, and when my boss drives the 15 seconds to the park, he was doing smack with local homeless people. Literally doing smack with hobos at the park. So of course the dude got fired. Then maybe a month later, we get a call from a customer saying that he was walking in the middle of a busy intersection with our company's shirt on. Guy had a crush on a female co-worker. He passed her a note at work one day with a gob of hand lotion inside it and the words, "I got really excited thinking about you earlier." The girl freaked out and went to management. The guy got escorted out. Had an employee pull a piece on me. This was after he got fired for threatening others at a Tier 1 help desk. Made everyone uncomfortable the entire time he was there. He's still in jail. It's been about 8 years now. I had an employee who got drunk on her lunch break, flipped her car, went to jail, mugshot with her company logo on her shirt. Perfect. Everyone is asking, our lunch break is 1 hour. Many employees leave to go out and eat. Potentially there were other substances involved. I work in pizza delivery, and we had a guy back in the day, fellow manager, who tried to shut down the store 5 hours before the time that corporate set for us to close. He clocked every person out and sent them home, and then just refused to take the phone calls or anything like that. He was fired immediately after our boss found out, and he even tried to come into work the next day like everything was fine. We used to do crap like that at my store once or twice a year. We always said the oven broke down or the power went out. No one bothered to check, and nobody ever got in trouble. We legitimately ran out of food multiple times and had to close because of it. I'd usually stay there and answer the phones because I think irate customers are the best thing ever. Picking up and telling them that everyone else is gone, I'm just there cleaning, and that we were completely out of everything on the menu, would usually get some sort of snarky, "Well, why did you pick up the phone?" kind of comment where I could just say, "To get it to stop ringing," and just wait for them to start cussing so I could hang up on them. Good God, I miss those days. As a former McDonald's employee, I can't imagine how on earth any of us would keep our jobs if we pulled some crap like this. I can't imagine any chain wouldn't be well regulated enough to stop this from happening under anything but the most extreme circumstances. I wasn't the manager, but watched the whole thing happen. A few years ago, I worked at a restaurant, and we had kind of an annoying new hire. One of those, "I'm too good for this" types. It was this kid's first job and first day out of training. One of his tables was a family with 2 small children who were being obnoxious, but hey, it's a family restaurant, that's expected. While walking away from the table, he muttered something along the lines of, "Shut up, you fricking kids." Except he didn't actually mutter, he spoke at normal volume. The mother overheard and was not pleased. He was sent home and invited not to return. I'm gonna start inviting people to not come back to things. Congratulations, you've been invited to frick off.
One of our warehouse workers was a young man about 25 years old. He was suspected of having a substance problem, mostly because of absenteeism and that he just seemed off at times. One day, he called our office manager from the back parking lot of our building and said that he had an upset stomach and had pooped his pants. She told him she would try to find a change of clothes to bring out to him, but before she could, he ran into the building and into the bathroom off the lobby, trailing his accident smeared on his shoes onto the floor. He then took off the crap-filled pants and left them in the bathroom and ran back outside to his car. At that point, everyone else in the small office was running outside to escape the horrible smell. Our office manager found a pair of pants in someone's locker and took them to where the guy was parked, but turned around when she saw him standing beside his car with no pants or underwear on. While everyone else was figuring out how to deal with the doo-doo in the office, the guy got in his car and left. He showed back up 3 days later as if nothing had happened. He was told to head back home. I could never figure out why he ran inside. If you crapped your pants, wouldn't you just get in your car and drive home?
I once crapped in my pants on my way to work, had some chicken that didn't agree with me. This was the start of a very bad case of food poisoning. I just turned around and went home, called work and told them I had food poisoning. Paid my sister to use our carpet cleaner to clean my car seat. I don't trust my toots anymore.
I'm not the manager involved, but I think this fits the bill. A coworker of mine who was a little bit too into his car got snapped doing twice the speed limit. Instead of pulling over for the patrol car behind him, he decided to run for it. He led a police chase to the office and shook them off by hiding in the underground parking. The GM watched it happen from his office. He took the lift down, found the coworker's car, and told him not to bother getting out.
But did it clear his wanted level?
Yeah, but the stupid motherfricker ran over a cop leaving the garage.
He's gonna need to hit the paint shop.
Eggplant pic on the office cloud storage.
How did you go about identifying the culprit to fire him?
Luckily, it wasn't my job to do, but if I recall correctly, they identified him from the computer used to log in. In the details on the file itself, the type of phone used to take the photo, and the directory the file was in. There's a chapter from Let's Pretend This Never Happened about the author having to learn how to ask, "Is this your eggplant?" with a straight face while working HR for a faith-based organization that apparently had a problem with folks using their company emails to send each other eggplant pics. It's fantastic. For extra fun, there's a line from that chapter as follows. "Are these your Johnsons?" I highly recommend getting the audiobook as read by the author, Jenny Lawson. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. Years back, a coworker got into some trouble for something and got called into the owner's office. A few minutes later, you hear a huge thump. The idiot broke his hand on the boss's desk during their disagreement. He got a police escort off the property. Worked as a bartender at a restaurant. I was cashing out a waitress who decided to enter the bar to
make herself a smoothie.
After fumbling around, she dropped a wine glass from the hanger and it smashed all over the counter. I told her she's going to need to clean it up before I can finish cashing her out. She then begged me that she needs her tips right now as her friend who she owes money to is waiting outside and that she was going to deliver the money, come back and clean it up. She never came back and I had to replace all the ice and all the fruit garnishes on a busy weekend night because of broken bits of glass that landed all over it. Of course, the manager comes over to ask why the drink tickets are 10 minutes long and I told him what happened. They immediately went into the schedule and gave all her future shifts to other people. The waitress called the restaurant not even 5 minutes later to ask why her shifts had been forcibly given away, and the manager replied, "'Cause you're fired," and hung up. Had an employee pass out in his truck in a customer's driveway. Customers called me to report said employee had a glass pipe on his chest. Luckily, guy decides to call me instead of the sheriff. The employee was picked up and brought back to the shop. When asked what was going on, he stated, "I was on a break, it wasn't green herb, it was just spice." "Sorry, bud, I don't think this is going to work out." "Spice? Do you spice? Are you looking for the Suncut Bazaar?" I see you critters answering these stories and I love it. Let me know below if you understood the reference. Fired a guy in his first week for browsing and downloading adult flicks at work on his lunch break. On a computer in a large room that other people worked in, at a government organization. So caught him red-handed, warned him not to do that, already thinking this guy will be fired at the end of the day, but have to go through the channels, was a weekend shift, and then 2 hours later he does it again at the same place. At that point I had the VP's approval to just fire him, and we'll deal with the paperwork on Monday. Let him go, he's shocked but doesn't say much. Being the only manager on site, I take screenshots of the sites he's visited, forward it off to HR and the VP to document it all. A few days later, the guy's father calls the VP to complain about his son being fired. Guy was in his mid-20s. Apparently, the fired employee never thought him being fired on the day he was busted for browsing adult flicks on a government computer in a government office was the reason to be fired, and he never told his irate father about this. So the VP deals with this very diplomatically, saying employee was viewing inappropriate content at work, was warned, continued bad behavior. Father doesn't accept the explanation, so the VP starts reading off the list of sites that were visited. All of them were hardcore sites geared toward large African-American women. Fired employee was Caucasian. The real kicker to this was that the VP believed that the fired employee was listening in on his father's conversation via another phone. Just as the sites were being read off, there was a very audible click of that phone being hung up. My husband is a manager, and his employee somehow had another employee's ID and then stole that person's check and cashed it. Caught it all on camera. She still denied it. In the legal field, that's called the shaggy defense. But we saw you sign the paper. It wasn't me. We even caught you on camera. It wasn't me. I hope this is a real thing between legal personnel. I had to send a guy to a remote gas and petroleum refinery site for an inspection. Previously, he had been reliable on most occasions. However, on this occasion, he never showed up for the pre-substance or alcohol test the day before he had to fly out and gave me a long-winded excuse, basically blaming his car troubles. At this point, I would have gone myself to the site, however, I was just back from a bone graft to my collarbone, so I wasn't going anywhere. The director made the final decision to send him anyway against my recommendations. We flew him to the site to do his on-site induction where he would do the D&A test anyway. Partway through his induction, he got up and left. I called him that night but never got an answer, so I checked his accommodation and the hotel claimed he had checked in within the last half hour. I was just glad nothing major had happened. Next morning I speak to the client and the client informs me that the staff member apologized for leaving abruptly and had to rush off and deal with some personal issues. I don't press it any longer. 2 hours goes by and I get a call from the client stating that they've kicked him off site because they've found him asleep on site, and when they woke him up, he became extremely aggressive. The client is furious about this and says we're a cowboy of an operation for sending someone like this and to fly someone up the next day to finish the job. That night, we have a conference call with the client, stating that we were no longer going to be working for them due to this issue, costing our company roughly $1 million for the loss of the contract. We bring him the day after he flies back to ask about his actions. I'm supposed to head this up and get his side of the story, except before we even really get into discussing things, my director asks, "If we were to substance test you today, will you fail?" He answers, "Yes." And he's told he's being terminated instantly. He starts yelling at the top of his lungs and blaming his actions on everyone else. I told him he needs to leave straight away or police will get called. He does. He leaves then for the next month, and our admin receives emails about how I'm terrible at my job and I should be fired for not listening to his problems, which he had never spoken to me about. So yeah, that was the day I fired my brother and found out he was addicted to crystal. There was a lot going on post his termination, and me and my dad combined to pay for rehab costs. He never stayed both times he was sent. Then there was physical threats of attack to my mum and my family for not giving him money. That's where I cut contact. Every update since has been from my dad. He hasn't seen my mum. He's working during the day and studying at night. I hope this time he can do well. As for the services that our employer offered, previously he had been given aid for counseling due to depression. Out of those 12 sessions, he had gone to 3. The situation gave me some pretty severe anxiety and depression. You can blame the plot twist way that I've written this due to the fact that I've just watched season 1 and 2 of Black Mirror over the last few nights. In auto sales, one of our salesmen always seems to be up to something. Between lying to all our customers, substance use, and constant fighting at home, he was impossible to manage. Unfortunately, he was the type that gave the rest of us a bad name. Eventually, he got into it with our GSM about several issues, and his go-to was to start making fun of our GSM's handicapped son. I had so much respect for our GSM, he took him in an office, told him he was terminated, and walked out, even though I know inside he was boiling with rage. I'm glad that guy's gone. And good riddance. Good gosh, did he want to be fired or something? It makes my mind spin that even if you harbor crappy opinions, you can somehow imagine that saying stuff like this won't get you fired. Not a manager, but I had to share my story. Worked at Jumbo Juice. Co-worker put bare hands into his pants and scratched his crotch at the register while helping a guest. When the guest commented, he put his fingers in the guest's face and said, "Smell it." Smell that? That's the jumba.
Wow.
I had an officer under me. He was reported in a tree. I went to investigate the last place he was seen. He was still there, attempting to pepper spray birds. I wish I could have made that up. He was fired immediately.
What's hilarious is that pepper spray has no effect on birds. They can't taste it and it doesn't irritate their eyes.
I actually didn't know that. Good gracious, put him below subpar.
Maybe that's why he was trying to pepper spray birds. Maybe he had heard it somewhere and wanted to see if it was true.
I own a tree removal service. Hired a guy as a ground worker. He worked great the first 2 weeks, didn't complain, seemed to know the work, and I paid him well. The third week working for me, we did a job that consisted of 2 big box elders to be removed. It was 95 degrees that day. I told the guys, don't push yourselves too much, make sure you're getting enough fluids, and if you need a break, take one. The new guy drove his own vehicle to the job as he needed to leave that day 40 minutes early to make it to a dental appointment. We're like 40 minutes into the job and I notice he's moving really slow. Just looked really unmotivated and like he didn't want to be there. We had the customer's driveway blocked off with brush everywhere. At this point, I'm still climbing in the tree and I see the new guy driving through the customer's yard, which was like 2 acres, and then onto the road in a serious hurry. I called him probably 30 times to make sure everything was all right. Didn't hear back from him. My other employees had no idea and were in shock. They saw him hop in his truck and just dart. He decided right then and there, frick this, and just left. Still haven't heard from him to this day. I didn't terminate him. That's the closest I would have come to firing someone. I don't know if I would have fired him if he'd showed up again the next day, but he would have had to do some pretty good explaining with a sincere apology for not letting anyone know and having the rest of the guys pick up the slack. My construction company was building a new addition on a hospital. One morning, the president of the hospital called to inform me that he had just watched one of our laborers doing smack in his truck while on break. Went to the job site, talked to the kid. He said, "Yeah, but I waited till break time." You aren't supposed to drive your personal vehicle to the job site for liability reasons. Oh yeah, and you're not supposed to do smack, even on a break. We've had some winners over the years, but that kid took the cake. This was definitely one of those situations that was not funny when it happened, but is hilarious now. One employee was dealing white snow from the back door. Another was high on smack and nodding off while standing over a fryer. Another went off on an admittedly rude customer and got real mean.
Your wife must be sorry she married you.
One called me an N-word, I'm white, and spat at me when I confronted him about the fact that his dad came in to say hi to him when he was out of work because his dad had a heart attack and was in the hospital. And one just sat in the dining room and refused to go back to work because a hockey game was on TV. Restaurant management is fun. I was a blacksmith at a federal historical site and I used to make nails as a demonstration. I didn't see this, but another blacksmith was making nails and a lady remarked, "They didn't have nails back then, 17th century," to which the blacksmith replied, "Yeah, right, lady, they scotch-taped Christ to the cross." What terrible specimens have you had to endure for roommates? 3 weeks before I was to move out of a place, my replacement moved in. My roommate had apparently told her it was okay. So now 3 people lived in an apartment meant for 2. From what I could tell, all she did was sit on the couch and watch TV. A week before I was to move out, a friend of mine came over to help me pack. Apparently, the replacement thought I was moving out that day and that she could finally move into my room instead of sleeping in a common area. When she found out that wasn't the case, she got upset with my friend. Over the next week, she asked me repeatedly, "So when are you moving out?" I told her it would be at the end of the month because I couldn't move into my apartment until then. She said I should move out sooner. What I think happened is my roommate told her I was moving out the prior month and that I was overstaying my welcome.
FYI, your former roommate was collecting double rent. That's usually pretty illegal.
Mine told me not to bring my friends over because Asian people made her uncomfortable. One roommate would leave the house without their keys, not because they forgot them, but because he didn't like having keys. Ever. The request was to stop locking the door when I left the house.
This is the second time I've read this. Like, do these people want to be robbed?
I'll never trust someone like this. I feel like it's an elaborate plot to steal your stuff. Leave the door unlocked when you go out.
Okay.
And then they take your stuff with their friends. When I was in the dorms in college, I roomed with this dude who I didn't know. The guy played football and was about 300 plus pounds. Well, the problem is he wouldn't shower. Ever. Like no fricking joke. Our room smelled like hot mayonnaise and BO. I would spray and clean. Well, eventually, I got nose blind. This mother fricker finally got a girl to come to the room. When she asked him why it stank, I heard him whisper, "It's him." I fricking blew up. I asked old girl whose side looked like it would stink. My side was spotless, while his was full of half-eaten food and sweaty clothes. She ended up agreeing and leaving. The only cleaning he did was when he would come home from practice, take off his sweaty clothes, and then proceed to Febreze them and then go and take a nap. Luckily, the room was really big. Finn.
I died inside when you said it smelled like hot mayo. You have my utmost sympathy as someone who hates mayo with every fiber of my being. And that guy sounds like a fricking douche.
I probably couldn't live with the gentleman in question here, and frankly, I don't understand how anyone could. Surely there's someone you can go to and complain in the dorm situation like this. She told me I needed to stay somewhere else overnight because her new boyfriend was staying for the first time. I said if she had given me more notice, then I could maybe have sorted something, but she had told me 2 hours before I needed to leave.
So what did you do?
I told her I'd go out for some food, then when I came back I was happy to stay in my room. She shouted a lot about how unreasonable I was being, but that was still what I did. My freshman year in college, he insisted on having 2 box fans placed in our window, one facing in, one facing out, in order to circulate the air. Seems like no big deal, right? Until you realize that he insisted they be on full power every night of the year. Didn't matter if it was 100 degrees outside or -10. My bed was the closest to the window, and if I tried to get up to turn them off, he'd get hostile as frick. Frick that guy.
Shove one fan up his butt and the other down his throat to circulate the air.
1% evil, 99% hot air. I use window fans, still do, even in January. I love and need very cold, moving air while sleeping. Sophomore year, my best friend at college really wanted to room with me. I knew my cold air thing would be a problem because every other girl I've ever met likes it very hot in their room, like 70+ degrees Fahrenheit. Like my freshman roommate kept it at 90 degrees plus, and she would crack the window to keep the radiators going at 90 degrees Fahrenheit. It was just horrible. Anyway, so I knew this would be a problem. I told my friend no, I wanted to live alone. She insisted she loved to sleep with window fans too, she loved the cold, blah blah blah. She kept asking for weeks. Eventually I said yes to rooming with her, with the clear understanding that I'd be using my window fan all year. Well, we roomed together and I used my fan, and January rolled along with frigid temperatures. My friend suddenly stopped speaking to me. I would ask her what's wrong and she didn't answer. She acted like I didn't exist. This lasted a couple of months before I remembered she had told me she had a blog. I looked up her blog and saw many posts dating back months complaining about what an awful person I am for freezing her to death with my window fan and how much she hates me for it. I was pretty surprised because she had never said anything. As soon as I read the blog, I asked her about it and she flipped out, went to the dean saying I'd invaded her privacy for reading her blog, and asked to be moved to a different room. She moved out and she never spoke to me again. So anyway, similar story to yours. I hope I wasn't the butthole here. I also wrote her a nice, long Facebook message right before graduation wishing her well, telling her what I admired about her and how she'd do great in life, and apologizing for losing her friendship sophomore year, but she never wrote back. I'm still puzzled. The fact that there is someone out there who can think they are rationally calling you the bad guy and hate you for this really concerns me. What the frick? When you repeatedly warn someone about it, they do it, and find out you're right, someone is a butthole and it isn't you. I have the master bedroom with the bathroom, and pay $65 more a month for this. My roommate, whose room is on my side of the house, gets to use my bathroom because we agreed he could. He lets his one-night stands and drunk friends walk through my room when I'm not there to use that bathroom, rather than the other one closer to the front door. I'm now missing 2 phone chargers and a pair of $100 headphones, but I'm missing them because I must have misplaced them. Can you buy a lock for your door? After that, our agreement would change. Not really a roommate, but a little stepbrother. He's 12. He wants to rotate beds from week to week. So I sleep in my bed, then the next week my stepbrother's bottom bunk, then the next week his top bunk. I don't want to sleep in either one of your beds, that's why it's called my bed. Just go to sleep. Explain to him that your sheets are full of your dead skin, farts, drool, pee, dribble, and that's why he shouldn't want to sleep in your bed. Then explain that his bed is full of his dead skin, farts, drool, pee, dribble, and that's why it's gross of him to ask you to sleep there. Well, now I don't even want to sleep in my bed. On move-out day, my sophomore year of college, I was cleaning my half of the dorm room. Mind you, the room had been a mess before. Both me and my roommate were very messy people, so the mess itself didn't bother us much. So cleaning my half took quite a while. But by the end of it, all of my stuff was packed in my car and I was ready to go. When I was done, my roommate said, "I'll have my stuff packed up in about an hour." I asked her why she was telling me that, and she said it was so I could finish cleaning. I took one look at her, set down the bag of cleaning supplies, and said, "Here's all the stuff you need." Then I turned in my key and left. Like heck, I'm going to stay behind an hour later than I needed to mop the floor and clean the surfaces of your side of the room, when you did jack all to help me. Handed me $50 while asking me to get them green herb while they owed me $700 in back rent.
Now they owe you $650 and still need green herb.
Had a roommate in college who refused to take his keys with him when he went out to the bar because he didn't want a lump in his pocket. He would then come home after everyone else was already asleep, and when the doors were locked, he would start pounding on the door and shouting, "This is bullcrap! I frickin' live here!" until he woke someone up and got them to go downstairs and let him in. Oh, frick me, that would not fly. Oh, he would though, right down the fricking stairs. Yep, for me, the net result of that situation would be the purchase of some noise-cancelling headphones and a grumpy flatmate the next morning, because there's no way I'm getting up on a regular basis for a moron like that. Oh, I had a neighbor like that in a building once. At least once a week, for more months than I can remember, he'd come home drunk in the wee hours, beating on his door and screaming until his roommate let him in. One night he was so drunk he decided pulling the fire alarm was the best way to get his roommate to open the door. I wasn't invited to the blanket party that was held for him by some of the other building residents after he did that, but he moved out very quickly afterwards. What's a blanket party?
When a group of people beat someone with bars of soap in a blanket, it's usually used on someone who's hampered or held back or teed off an entire group. It's a percussive attitude adjustment tool.
We had several rooms and one was huge, meant for 2 or 3 people. It had a sink and 2 walk-in closets. After signing the lease, she announced that she needed the giant room to herself because she had PTSD and OCD. She wouldn't explain herself any further and threw a passive-aggressive tantrum for a month when we refused to cram ourselves into the 2 tiny rooms with 4 people so that she could have the big one to herself. We told her that she could be in the big room with another roommate, but she didn't want that. She just chose the small room eventually. We never heard the end of it either. It was always our fault that she was late to school because she didn't have a private bathroom and crap. Before you ask, yes, this person was in therapy, but according to her, she was in therapy because she needed to learn to be selfless and put herself first. She had frequently used that as an excuse to be selfish.
My therapist thinks I need to put myself first.
I roomed with another girl that was like this, but at least it was just me and her. She claimed because of her OCD and obsessive shopping, she needed a bigger room with the private bathroom and large closet. So I got the small room and shared the bathroom with guests and her, since it was closer to the living room and everyone used it if they were over. Since she used that bathroom too, I had to maintain it to a very high cleanliness standard for her. Meanwhile, her private bathroom was a pigsty. I had to pay 50-50 rent to get a much smaller room and share a bathroom. I was out of there when the lease ended the following year. Mental illness isn't an excuse to be a jerk.
Ugh, I agree. It's an insult to the millions of mentally ill people who are perfectly nice and considerate. Your roommate sounds terrible.
You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. I had a roommate who moved out without warning about 2 months before my lease was up. She pretty much disappeared and left most of her stuff in the apartment. She also didn't pay up for her remainder of the rent. 3 years later, I get a phone call from her. I'm living 1,500 miles away and have been in several different apartments in several different states during the interim. She says I need to ship all of her furniture and belongings immediately.
What do you mean you dragged everything out to the curb the week after I left? You're a terrible roommate. You owe me for the value of my things.
I stopped answering her calls and eventually she gave up. I would have sold them all. Well, her stuff wasn't even that nice. Mine was adamant that I tried doing the deed with him. For clarification, I'm a straight guy and I didn't know he was gay. He said that I might like it, but I'd never know if I didn't try it.
I've had that phrase used on me too, from my best friend at the time.
How do you know you're not gay if you've never done anything gay?
How did you react? I kinda froze up and stammered something about how painful it would be without lube. Then I left. I don't think his family thinks much of me anymore because I didn't visit him in hospital a couple of months later when he was in a coma. I don't think they know their son wanted me to top him either, so I don't blame them for being mad at me.
I'd planned to spend my birthday evening quietly reading and watching Italian murder mysteries. Roommates announced that I needed to go make plans because they were having friends over and didn't want it to be awkward. The friends they were inviting were always so incredibly rude to me. So I smiled and said, sure, I'll make plans, and invited 3 of our neighbors and half of my creative writing class to eat cake and watch Italian murder mysteries. My crappy roommates had to go to their friend's apartment instead. He was a germaphobe and a bit stupid. He wanted all the other housemates to completely scrub the tub with cleanser after we took a shower, so he wouldn't come into contact with butt wash water or something else. We laughed at him and told him he could disinfect the tub himself before he showered if he was so worried.
If someone has a problem like that, I'd happily spray down the shower after use. Just a small thing, but fricking scrubbing the entire bathtub? Frick that.
Not me or any roommate situation I've had, but you know when you've had a friend complain about something and you only hear their side of the story? If you still think they're wrong, they must be extra wrong, right? My friend told me that her roommate forgot his keys at home one night. This sucks because he works late. He rings the doorbell, she wakes up all angry, opens the window and says,
"Oh, that's too bad, but it's late. Go back to your office and sleep."
Rather than just accept his apology and open the door, she told him to go back to his workplace, sleep there, and just come home some other time. She was telling me the story as if I'd be like, wow, the nerve of this guy trying to come home. Instead, my initial reaction was, man, that's freaking annoying that he woke you up, which very quickly changed to, what the whole frick is wrong with you though, by the end of the story. Not yet a roommate, but started making outrageous demands. There was a time I was leasing out the spare bedroom of my home and there were a few weird, crazy requests I got. An elderly lady thought the room for rent also included me taking care for her as a caregiver and driving her around. She also demanded I install AITA ramp on my porch. A couple who was so sure I would select them as a roommate, I told them of my no pets policy, went to my yard and started to plan out how they plan to fence off a section for their doggy. Hello lady, this is my home. They got mad when I told them I was turning down their application. FYI, I have nothing against dogs, I have cats that happen not to play well with others, hence the no pet policy. Had an actual roommate that refused to pay the bill because she was broke and would close the door on me and expected me to pay for her part. Yet she was out all night partying and getting expensive weaves. She left her email open at my PC and I saw the cost. Told her I can't pay her part and she'll get evicted if the rent is not paid on time. She left a week later. You'd think the crazies would have it in their best interest to hide their eccentricity right up until the move-in. In my experience, that's what they usually do anyway. I moved into our first 3-person dorm room, so I picked the prime bed. None of us knew each other before this, we were all in a bind for housing, and lo and behold, she and her family shows up and gives me the stink for having the gall to take the good bed. I get along really well with my other roommate, but this girl started using all of our stuff and staring at us when we slept or did homework. We got ants because she never cleaned the kitchen, but she would hide dirty plates and bad food in the back of the very deep pantry instead of cleaning or throwing it away. She wouldn't let us have friends over but felt the need to talk loudly on the phone at all hours. I lost it when she left a pair of sweatpants on the floor of our shared closet with actual crap in them. We searched for a different room for her and made her move out. I still have the hate letter she wrote me the day after she left. I met my first roommate on Craigslist. First red flag, I guess. I wasn't allowed to keep my music above volume 10 after 9 or 10 p.m. She, however, sang gospel songs loudly in the living room until 4 or 5 in the morning, every single day. I had to open my mail in front of her, otherwise she'd open it because it looked important. Aside from this being totally illegal, why the frick do you need to read my bank statements? She'd text me when I got Amazon packages. "Oh, your shoes got here," because she'd open it and dig around before I got a chance to. She never cleaned, as in her mother still came over every weekend to clean her bedroom and bathroom. She had let her trash accumulate near her spot on the couch throughout the week. Clearly didn't give a crap about her living environment, but God forbid I put the television remote anywhere besides the right arm of the couch. I wasn't allowed to turn the heat on in the winter.
To save money.
I live in the mountains of North Carolina and the winters are pretty harsh. She would rather freeze than pay an extra $15 per month. Over the summer though, I wasn't allowed to open the windows, so no one breaks in. My apartment was either in the 50s, 60s, or the 80s. She didn't like it when I used the kitchen to cook, strange, but she would hand wash her period panties in the kitchen sink, even though we each had a private bathroom. Frick you, Rebecca. I had one roomie announce one day that he was going to stop paying his share of the rent. I explained that no rent equals no room. He thought that was unreasonable and went around telling people I was cold. What a butthole.
He wanted his girlfriend to move in rent-free. This girl used my cookware and never cleaned it. She took forever in the shower. We put an end to that real quick.
My current roommate. I own the house and did a buttload of work to clean out the garage so I could turn it into a man cave. He did absolutely jack to help, and most of the work was cleaning up piles of recycling he never took out. Now it's cleared, he wants to park his car in there. But there's actual stuff taking up half the garage, so he would only be able to park in there while the other roommate and I park on the street and not use the driveway so that he can get in and out. He thinks I'm being unfair by not letting him park in there. Also, he cooks and never cleans, and has more than once let leftovers rot in my Tupperware and then thrown it out instead of cleaning it and not replaced it. This happens every time I move in with someone. Every single time. They tell me I don't do any dishes ever, which is very true. What I have to keep reminding them is that I have one plate, one bowl, one fork, one knife, and one spoon. Keep them in my room at all times. Always wash them immediately after I'm done using them and bring them right back into my room. Always hilarious to hear their response. Listen guys, I have one single cup that I drink from every single day. I wash it before I fill it up for the day. I wash my pots and pans right after I'm done cooking, and my plates and silverware after I eat. The other 14 dirty glasses on the counter and sink full of week-old dishes are yours, and I'm not fricking washing them for you. I absolutely hate when people rotate who does the dishes, and then your dumb as frick roommates manage to use 4 glasses, all the pots and pans, and every available piece of silverware in like 5 hours. What in the holy frick are you cooking that makes so many pots and pans? Had an actress roommate who on random Saturdays and Sundays said she needed the entire apartment to herself to study her lines. I rarely had anyone over to begin with as I was usually out and about, but this particular Sunday there were like 4 of us in the living room watching Mythbusters. I only include this to show that it's not like we were watching NFL and screaming or shouting or being drunk. She legitimately thought this was not okay and that everyone else should leave to accommodate her. Anyone who thinks like this should live by themselves. I'll never understand how people who want to split costs to save money still think people should accommodate them. When I have roommates, I realize that if I want peace and quiet, I sometimes need to remove myself and go to the library or something. That's the price you pay to save money. It wasn't my roommate's unreasonable demand, but it was my roommate thinking my request was an unreasonable demand. My roommate and I rented a house together and the garage was pretty close to the living room. One day I was watching TV when I heard what sounded like something smashing into the garage. I waited a few seconds and went outside to see that my roommate had hit the garage with his truck and was chilling in his car texting. His car was still touching the garage. I told him to back up and he got really upset that I'd asked him to do that. Luckily, the damage was minimal, but what the frick, man? When I was a freshman in college, I lived in a dorm suite with 4 other girls, 3 single rooms and 1 double, which I shared with a roommate. One of the girls who lived in the single rooms was a real piece of work. Every slight change in the suite would drive her nuts, and she'd always be knocking on our door demanding an explanation for some minute thing or another. One time she knocked on my door only to show me a tiny scrap of ham and a piece of cereal pinched between her fingers. There was meat and cookie crisp on the kitchen floor. "Is this yours?" "Yes," I said. "You can throw those away." I also came home to her crying in the living room once because of another of our suite mates put a monster poster on the front door for a Halloween decoration, and it scared her. I guess those things don't sound too crazy out of context, but she'd knock to tell me she'd moved my food from the table to the counter and just general tiny stuff like that. Very strange. Parents, when did you realize it wasn't just teenage hormones? Your kid was just a bad person. My parents are realizing what I've known about my sister for years now. She's on the hook for $60,000 in student loans and such, after failing out of 2 colleges for rampant drinking, and refuses to do so much as her exit counseling for them. Parents have co-signed everything, and Mum says that every call she makes there ends in shouting because it's screwing up their credit. Because she lives a couple of states away from them now, she thinks she can get away with it. Mum says they're thinking of taking her to court over it. My sister was in this situation a few years ago. I fully sympathize with you and your family. In the end, we threatened to take her to court over the damages she caused to the household and credit, and it scared her into behaving. In the end, however, she nearly ended up in prison, did community service, moved to a different country. I saw her for the first time in years a couple of months ago, and she's finally grown up. She's now 28. Finally. My dad makes a good living that allows my mum to be a stay-at-home mum. As a stay-at-home mum, my mum's only real job is to be the maternal figure of the house. Needless to say, she goes all out. Well, in elementary school, my mum would pack me and my brother extravagant bag lunches, amazing sandwiches with all the cookies and chips any middle schooler would love. One day, my mum started to notice that my little brother was coming home super hungry after school and that he had eaten all of his lunch, yet he was still dying of hunger every day at 3 o'clock when he would walk through the door. My mum asked him why he was so hungry and she suspected he was getting bullied and his food was getting taken by some of the older kids at school. He's pretty small. Well, since he didn't say anything, my mum called his teacher and had her look out for him. My mum got a startling call not more than a week after her inquiry. My younger brother was gathering the fat, poor, hungry kids who didn't have money or were still hungry for food and was putting on a hunger talent show. He would make the fat kids dance for his food and the poor kids do weird jackass-like stunts for it. When my mum heard, she was devastated. She had spawned a real little butthole. Years later, he's a successful lawyer with a beautiful family, but still a fricking butthole. Your brother is President Snow? At first, I thought this was going to be a story of him donating his lunch to the less fortunate and was wondering how that made him into a butthole. My brain had trouble fathoming the depravity of the reality of this story. That he turned out to be a lawyer is no surprise. When he was 3 years old, I was napping on the couch when he came up, opened a bottle of water I had next to me, poured it on my crotch, and asked me why I'd peed myself. I mean, that's definitely not teenage hormones. Given that I anticipate a lot of tragic stories of broken families, toxic relationships, and general depressing content in this thread, I thought I should include this monster who soaked their parents' crotch. I'm sure there's like a 50-50 shot that they aren't the devil reincarnated. When my mum called me asking if I could track down my sister's baby because she had abandoned it. My sister has 5 kids, 2 were with their father, but she had the other 3 with other people. My mum got a call from the twins' babysitter saying she hadn't heard from my sister in a few days, and was wondering when my sister would be coming to pick her kids up. My mum called around and no one could find my sister or the baby. So she went to pick up the twins and their babysitter suggested that the baby might be with a woman whose name she could only partially remember, but who she'd heard was babysitting the baby from time to time. So my mum frantically called me asking if I could use the magic of the internet to track this lady down. I used online yellow pages, Facebook connections, and just cold calling a lot of the people asking, "Do you have a baby?" I finally got a hold of the right person who said, "I was just about to call the cops. I thought I was going to be babysitting for a few hours and it's been 2 days. My mum went and picked him up, and my sister hadn't even dropped off any clothes with him. In conclusion, my sister basically just said, "This is too much pressure for me," arranged for babysitters for the 3 kids, and left town. My mother was convinced at that moment that she had raised a sociopath. My mum forced her to have her tubes tied, and then won the custody of the baby, and the babysitter of the twins became their foster parents and will probably ultimately adopt them. My sister got remarried and joined the army. We're all just waiting for her to either get kicked out, start cheating on the new guy, or whatever. My grandson is in kindergarten. Last week he threw his lunchbox at his teacher because he wanted to see what would happen. Journal entry for March 1st, 2013. Week-long detention hypothesis confirmed. As I discussed last week, I hypothesized that throwing a lunchbox at my teacher's skull would result in at least a week detention. Not only was that confirmed, but I was also grounded at home. I suspect the adults have some sort of reason to prevent injury, an odd custom. I propose that other weapons beside a lunchbox would elicit a similar response. Regardless, this was a small sample size. I plan on recruiting other children in other classes to test this hypothesis. Of course, we will need to double-blind these experiments as well. Next week, I will try a knife. I did similar stuff as a young child. I'd throw crap at people or hit people to get a reaction, but that all changed when I threw a snowball at a bigger kid who proceeded to shove my face in a snow mound. I was 5. He was also 5, but bigger. When my cousin slapped our grandmother, for no reason. For those wondering, this cousin is male. Also, I wasn't there to witness it, but family members referenced it. His apparent reason was, "She was bugging me." That's not much of a reason to me, so I just say he's being a butthole. He's my fiance's kid, but he lives with us, and I deal with him 80% of the time. I knew shortly after I met him 2 years ago what a butthole he is. He's constantly lying about stupid crap. He is entirely self-absorbed, he screams and rages over the dumbest stuff, and threatens to take his own life if you try to make him do the dishes. He got expelled from school for threatening to shiv a kid with a broken pair of scissors because that kid asked him a question. He then proceeded to tell us that the principal was a lying B-word and that she and all the other children at school were trying to frame him. As far as he's concerned, the entire world is out to get him, and everyone else is fricked up, and if you call him on his crappy behavior, he threatens to take his own life. Take yours, or call the cops to frame you for inappropriate behavior with a minor. He's a butthole to the extreme, and no one really wants anything to do with him because of it. We've had therapists that have literally refused to see him again after only 1 or 2 sessions. He's 12. My son, who was 25 at the time, blamed me for his unemployment because I spent too much money on him when he was a child. My older sister cheats on her husband constantly, is rude as frick at almost all times, and has been this way for her entire life. My mother still refuses to acknowledge that she's a legitimate butthole and always has been. Does her husband know? If not, are you considering telling him? I should have clarified, the husband knows. He knows everything. It's a strange situation. My sister is a user. She spent months, years back on MySpace, looking for a husband. Basically, she used her time to look for someone to take care of her. She's always been very manipulative and sort of the black sheep of our family. Anyway, she wrangled herself an Air Force guy. My sister is an attractive lady, but her husband is most definitely not a good-looking guy, and I'm positive that she's used this as an angle of sorts to keep this ruse going. She doesn't do crap, but spends his money and cheats on him. And because he's too much of an insecure pansy, he won't take charge and leave her. Worst part of all is now there's a gosh darn child involved. Fricking A. I don't know if my 13-year-old is a butthole just yet, but last week he was suspended for running up to a kid at school who wasn't looking and smacked him across the face super hard, while he was videotaping it with his phone, no less, and then uploaded it to Vine and Twitter. And then he said he was just joking around. I'm also starting to think he's a little dumb because we live in Steubenville, Ohio, and if there's one thing the kids there should have learned, it's that you get in a ton of trouble for doing illegal things involving social media. That was a trend in the UK about 5 years ago, except it was called happy slapping. Sometimes the best love is tough love. If you keep giving him the benefit of the doubt, he can get away with it and will continue to do that in the future. My little brother is a butthole and my parents know it, and to keep him from having a fit, spoil him all the time. Fit as in foot stomping, blood-curdling screams, cursing, etc. He's 13. I despise him greatly. The narrator is hoping for the sake of these families that just for the general spoiled behavior, 13 is still a little too young to judge whether the kid is a lost cause yet. I say this specifically because there seem to be a lot of 13-year-olds in these stories. Case in point, I have a 13-year-old grandson that we moved 750 miles to help raise because our daughter passed away. At first we thought he was just having a hard time coping, as we all were, but lately the non-appreciative attitude and the you owe me attitude has been very loud and disrespectful. No matter what he gets or doesn't get, it's never enough. His demands are not those of a normal child. We raised 4 and assisted some with all the grandkids. He speaks to us like he's grown and never gets quiet or even attempts to show respect and listen to what we have to say. 13 and wondering every day. I'm a teacher who works with middle schoolers every day. Remind them that the only thing they're entitled to is the air they breathe and maybe some food to keep them alive, and clothing to keep their body temperature from lowering below 98 degrees. And if he acts like a butthole, take away everything except for the essentials. Kids who think they're owed everything grow up to be adults to think the same way. Not so cute when you're 30 with the maturity of a 7th grader. And if you do this, be very matter-of-fact about it. Not angry. They sense anger as weakness and try to push your buttons. Be calm as though you're talking about the weather, and no matter what, follow through. The one time you don't will be your downfall. My stepson has autism, which makes it tricky because sometimes autism can look like behaving like a butthole in certain circumstances where social skills are a challenge for them. But the truth is that people with autism have good personalities or bad personalities, just like anyone, and my stepson is a butthole. He's a selfish bully who looks for victims. He takes his anger out only on people who cannot or will not fight back. He has fantasies about violence with children smaller than him. He's come after me with a butcher knife. On and on. He's a lot like his biological dad, who lost custody of his kids because he slugged his little girl and threatened to take his wife's life. He's an administrator at a Christian college, by the way. My stepson is out of the house and in a home group now. I really loved him. I tried so hard to help him. We got so much professional help, and yet he is who he is. Good parenting can do a lot, bad parenting can too, but in the end, you just are who you are. Any changes that can be made need to come from you. Nobody can do it for you. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe.
My son is only 10 and is in no way a butthole, but my father had 7 kids. I remember him saying, "You have until the age of 12 to teach your kids. After that, they become buttholes for the next 10 years.
This thread is making me love birth control even more than I already did. My wife and I are still hoping it's the hormones and not his lifelong personality. When I was in high school, I was showing my mom a few signatures in my yearbook. There was one signature that I had gotten as a joke. The guy was not popular or attractive, followed me around like a puppy, had gross habits. I was telling my mom about the guy and was laughing about getting him to sign my yearbook. My dad overheard all of this and said, "You're a fricking jerk butthole, girl. You're the butthole girl who everyone secretly hates. Frick you for treating that guy like that. That's really something to be proud of, you jerk." I felt guilty about my actions toward the guy ever since. As an adult, I go out of my way to not do the popular thing and to not follow others, to not treat people differently. I was trying to be popular that time in high school by treating someone like scum, and my dad changed my entire outlook on life by pointing it out and by yelling at me that evening. I don't have kids, so I thought I'd point out the moment when I was the jerk. I was actually in the reverse of this situation, realizing that my parent was a legitimate butt. I was bullied in school quite a bit as a kid. During that time, I wasn't living with my parents, I was living with my grandparents. When I moved back in with my mother, I realized how differently she acted behind closed doors than I was used to. Emotional bullying, PMDD, anger management issues, hormonal imbalance. I started to ask about her childhood. She told me stories about how she and her best friend would terrorize people and bully other girls in school. In one example, leaving dog crap in a birthday gift box at the foot of a girl they particularly liked to torment, until she eventually transferred. She had a few stories like that she would tell with a laugh like they were totally normal and hilarious. In conclusion, my mum is the answer to the question, what becomes of the childhood bully? My friend is one of these legitimate buttholes. His parents are very nice people. I get on great with them. The problem lies that they were very fortunate in life with money and never put their foot down with my friend. He always got his own way. If he wanted something, he got it. He refused to go to university, but his parents really wanted him to. He then went to uni on the basis that they would pay for a year's travel expenses for him. A term into uni, he got his parents to buy him a car, otherwise he would drop out. I put friend at the top because he's actually a really nice guy up until his teenage years. It was around this time that his dad's business rocketed. My other friend and I are only friends with him because sometimes he can still be nice. We give him crap about being horrible to his parents though, and he doesn't take it on board. Maybe the combination of his puberty hormones and parents' wealth happening at the same time wasn't a good thing for him.
We all have that friend who transforms into a flowering prick overnight. What's worse is that they go on to live successful lives, until they crash and burn at 33 because they have no real friends.
My mum's just figured this out with my little brother. He's 18 and just moved to uni. Me and him haven't gotten along for a long time. My mum has defended him for years, claiming he's just fiercely independent and enjoys his privacy, but I've considered the behavior obnoxious for a long time. If you ask about how he is, he flips out because it's not your business. If you have a conversation and he disagrees with you with something, he will not respond to any evidence that supports you and will belittle and patronize.
Yeah, sure it is. Oh yeah, right.
But that's just how he is. He has zero empathy. If something is going wrong in someone's life, he becomes Mr. Hindsight, absolutely emotionless and again, condescending and belittling. There is no such thing as opinion or grey areas in his world. If he's seen someone's life go to crap through green herb use, then all green herb use is terrible and the medical Mary J idea is bullcrap. If he likes a band, they're good, and if you disagree, not only are you wrong, but you're a little piece of crap he's found on his carpet. But he just can't communicate very well. He doesn't really mean what he's saying. Try and listen better. So he went to uni and hasn't called my mum except to ask her for help moving from one room to another. She is obviously worried. He's the baby and now her and dad have an empty nest and she misses him. So she texts and emails at most once a day, just asking, "How are you?" rather than calls. She doesn't want to disturb him. She doesn't get replies usually, but then she's got this horrible email back. "Stop trying to invade my life. You're not involved anymore. It's none of your business. Just leave me alone." I think she's realized that it may just be how he is. But how he is a butthole. She's still trying to defend him a little, but when I talk to her, it's easy to hear the hurt in her voice. She's always been there for this little brat, much to my annoyance, as she's always sided with him in arguments. I know he's yelled at you for the last 30 minutes, but did you ask him how school was? But hearing her this upset is awful. I think she's always hoped that once he got more independence, he'd relax a bit. He always felt trapped in our hometown, but it's gone the other way. I honestly don't think he has any intention of being part of the family again. He's previously told me that if I or he ever have kids, they're probably not going to meet each other, and that looking after my parents is probably going to be my responsibility. I don't overly mind, but I know it's going to kill my mum. Yeah, I knew that there would be a lot of sad stories like this when I picked the story group, and here is maybe our most detailed example. Heartbreaking. I have a son who I thought was a butthole from a very early age. He could give you a look at age 2 that made you deep down want to punt him like a football. Like it triggered some old, deep part of the brain that we don't use anymore and actually made you angry just by this look he'd give you. After a while, it no longer bothered me. I figured he was just born a butthole. Then at age 6, after many specialists and tests, he was diagnosed with Asperger's. With proper treatment and understanding, he's now only casually a butthole, but getting better. I started reading this out of curiosity. Funny how so many are not from parents, but from siblings and other relatives. My cousin supposedly locked herself in the bathroom after an argument with my uncle, called the cops and claimed that he, along with my aunt, were being physically inappropriate. She asked to be removed from the home and she was moved into a foster family. She still came to all family holidays and insisted on sleeping in my room. I have a trundle bed, so a spare bed underneath my bed, and she would wait until I left the room and would steal from me. On 2 separate occasions, my MP3 player and my Game Boy Color, along with all the games, were stolen. She lived 4 hours away, so when my aunt eventually found them, I had to wait for them to be mailed back to me. She was a proclaimed animal activist and vegetarian. Only when it was convenient to her, though. I've been a vegetarian for 9 years and we always had veggie food in our house. She was always just an awful person. I've been planning my wedding for almost a year now. She got engaged and within a month, she stole my future wedding date. Seeing a lot of the stories here, I'm recognizing myself at that age and I feel like it's worth reassuring the parents in this thread that it may not always be like that. Looking back, there are so many things I did in middle school and high school that I really regret and that I feel terrible about now. I could have easily been considered a butthole, I think. I'm now in my 4th year of university and I consider myself to be a much better person than I was back then. I know that I caused my parents a lot of grief then, but seeing how things between us have gotten better makes me happy. So you shouldn't give up hope at such an early age. Sometimes all it takes is for your kid to grow up and earn some experience in the real world. I saw the exact moment on my uncle's face when he realized his son was a butthole. He had been getting into trouble, little chicken crap stuff, then he gets busted for statutory. So my uncle, who used to be a police officer, calls in every favor he can to get the charges dropped. He hated what his son did, but it was his son and still felt he had to look out for him. Then, the very night his charges are dropped, the moron goes out and gets arrested again for the same crime. No help the second time. Now he deals blackjack at a casino and has a gambling problem. The tragedy is, he used to have so much potential. My parents told me that I was a crappy kid my whole life. It wasn't until I was in my 20s that I was able to reflect on this and realize they were just narcissistic buttholes who don't like children. My dad used to tell me I was the most selfish person he knew. I did the family laundry, cooked the meals, cleaned, got all A's in school, and never did drinking or substances. Sorry, I sometimes needed time alone. I realized my younger brother was a butthole when he was 3 years old. He had been hitting, biting, kicking, and generally bullying my 2-year-old brother, and my dad's response was, "Boys will be boys." Anyway, my 3-year-old brother was mad at the youngest for some reason. He pushed the baby onto the tile floor and proceeded to take violent action against him. Needless to say, the baby was rushed to the ER, where my dad claimed the baby had just fallen over. This sort of abuse is still happening. They're 15 and 16 now. The only difference is my dad tells the oldest not to leave marks because CPS has been called multiple times throughout their childhood. One time I caught the oldest trying to engage in inappropriate behavior with the other, and I was so angry I beat the crap out of him. I told my family and was going to call the cops, but they informed me if I called the cops, I was dead to them. The butthole is the golden boy and can do no wrong. He's the spitting image of my psychotic father. I thought my 13-year-old was up to some crap. A couple of days ago, I saw him unlock his phone. He went to practice and I gave in to curiosity. He's actually a really nice and cool nerd. I figured I was already a crappy parent for looking, so I browsed it all. texts, Facebook, and Instagram. It was all chatter about sports, video games, and horse masks. His pics were of his siblings and passed-away grandmother. I felt horrible for not trusting him. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.